Introduction to the Red Heart Sky Survey. The physical book of Red Heart Sky Survey has been released online. In ancient times, the demon race disappeared. In ancient times, the dragon race disappeared. The era of the great prosperity of Shinto is like smoke, and the era of the pinnacle of flying swords will eventually sink what happened in this world. Who will listen to the historical truth buried in the river of time? 1,000 miles of mountains and rivers depict the dead, and 100 years of Qiankun depict the hungry tiger. The heavens and earth are as merciless as heaven and earth. I have a heart to patrol the sky. Welcome to the world of immortality and chivalry, where love is so great. Red Heart Sky Survey World Map Setting Script. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This is a world of immortals and knights, so the map is much larger than what the author's sketch shows. The countries marked on the map are not all countries in the world map, but only a part described in the novel. As the novel is not yet completed, it is not ruled out that there may be a possibility of further filling in the subsequent creations. Unless specifically described, major powers do not need to be drawn as borders. Many blank spaces in the middle may be wasteland, places where fierce beasts are raised, and some dangerous and secret areas that the author did not draw in his sketch. This is very different from real maps. We need to leave some space. At the same time, in this world, the national system is only a reform of the spiritual system since the beginning of the new year. Not all places belong to major countries. Basically, the sects that can appear on the map are stronger than ordinary countries. The above are the prerequisites for the world map. There are 6 hegemonic powers in the world. Jingwa is the hegemon of the central region. In the center of the entire mid-range. Sitting at the gate of 10,000 demons. Behind the gate of 10,000 demons is the world where the demon race is located. Qi is the hegemon of the eastern regions. Due to the responsibility of suppressing the sea people in Shanghai, the eastern side of the country faces the sea directly. Chu is the hegemon of the southern region. The geographical location is the southernmost country, and it needs to suppress the meteorite forest. Qin was the hegemon of the western regions, dominating the southwest of the present world. To the west of the state of Qin, there is a river called the Wei River, which extends from the border and connects to Yuyuan. The bottom of Yuyuan is the Shuluo tribe. There is a Wuguan on the Wei River, which was built to suppress Yuyuan. Mu Kingdom and Jing Kingdom are the hegemons in the northern region. These two countries are stationed together on the border, which is the boundary between life and death. Mugua is a country of grasslands, while Jingwa has many plains. In the depths of the boundless desert, there is endless flowing sand. No one can reach. It is said that in the depths of endless quicksand, there is a connection to the desolate tombs of all worlds. The Wuxia wasteland tomb is the world where the demon clan is located, perhaps because it has been ravaged by the demon tide for too long. The topography of the northern regions is the most unique in the world. The life and death line that separates the boundless desert from the boundless grassland looks different within the territory of Jingwa. Jingwa is not like the pastoral kingdom, without such vast grasslands. They confront the boundless desert with military fortresses on the plain that are as sharp as beasts. The death of the frontier remains unchanged. The birth of the human race has its own differences. In the pastoral country, it is an endless grassland, full of vitality. In the kingdom of Jing, this life is like a forest of swords and spears. By using these 6 hegemonic countries, we can roughly anchor the scope of the 5 domains. This is the foundation of the entire world map. The gate of 10,000 demons suppressed under the capital city of Jingwa, Tianjing City, the vast sea behind the Lost Realm, the meteorite fairy forest at the end of the south, the Yuyuan behind the Wuguan Pass, and the endless flowing sand in the boundless desert, Wuxia wasteland tomb. These 5 places basically represent the most vicious places in the world and are also connected to the mortal enemies of the human race, which need to be displayed on the map. There is only the sea to the east of this world, not in any other direction. So other seas can be erased. This world has no end, and the end blocks another world. Above the East China Sea, there is a vast coastal archipelago. There is a powerful sect on the offshore archipelago called Jiaohai Tower. To the east of the nearshore archipelago lies the mysterious realm, a chaotic small world that serves as the frontline battlefield for human and sea races, which used to be the vast sea where the sea races lived. The living environment was extremely harsh, with frequent occurrences of catastrophic thunderstorms and the eternal darkness vortex, among other natural disasters. Hand-drawn map of the nearby sea islands. Haimen Island is narrow and long, while Deqiao Island is like an axe. The size of Crescent Island is opposite. Other iconic features: original novel, Disaster Water. In the southeast corner of the world, it is a dangerous area that takes over the entire dark side of the world. Can be understood as a place where disasters gather. The responsibility of the Blood River sect is to manage troubled waters. In addition to being the holy land of the Xianzong and legalist schools in the world, the Sanxing Palace also has the responsibility of suppressing disasters. Changhe, the longest and largest river in this world, is called Changhe. Just knowing the river section, it has already traveled tens of thousands of miles. The source of the Changhe River originates from the extremely western region, and there is also a saying that its source is at Yujing Mountain, one of the holy sites of Daomen. Regardless of the statement, it has not been confirmed. What can be tested today is that the source of this water vein is at least further west of the Wan Kingdom in the western regions, and it passes through the central regions and winds all the way to the Xia Kingdom in the southern regions. Not entering the sea, the Long River system, connected by the Long River and its tributaries, covers half of the territory of the human race and nurtures countless creatures on both sides. Because it is also known as the vast sea within the land, Mother River, Ancestral River, and source of inland rivers. There are 9 towns, 9 bridges, on the Changhe River. The 9 sons of the ancient emperors who refined dragons were called 9 bridges, which suppressed the water flow of the Changhe River. Tianma Plain is a plateau located in the middle section of the Yangtze River, adjacent to the 2 countries of Wei and Hua. It is situated north of the Yangtze River and looks like a giant overlooking the river, facing the observation platform to the south. Tianma Yuan faces the Changhe River to the south, Hegua to the west, and Rinxin Hall to the north. Looking to the east, from south to north, there are Hua Kingdom, Wei Kingdom, and Diligent Academy. Guanhe Terrace, the ancient sages built a viewing platform on the Yellow River section and joined forces to suppress the water flow of the Long River. Because countless creatures on both sides rely on the Long River for their survival, they cannot be suppressed. If one intends to control their power, the seal will inevitably loosen under the continuous erosion of the Long River. Therefore, every period of time, the sages will come to reinforce the seal. This is the earliest meeting of the Yellow River. Later, it evolved into a gathering of national pride. Showcasing the future of the human race, intimidating the Dragon Lord in the Long River, while also dividing the interests of various countries within the human race. This is a building of great significance to the human race. There is no Yellow River in the world, only the Yellow River section of the Long River. The so-called Yellow River section is precisely between Wugua and Jinghua Jingtian Mansion, original text 1. When the Changhe River passes through the Tianma Plateau, mud and sand flow down. In the section from the fertile land country, Hua country, to the Jingtianfu River in Jinghua, the river water is turbid and does not show its true color, which is called the Yellow River section. Original text 2, the Long River flows through the present world, passing through Hua to Jing, with a southern bend. That is to say, the flow direction of the Yellow River section is from northwest to southeast. Instead of going straight eastward all the way before. The Lion-Dragon Bridge happens to be at the upper end of this turning point, which is where it spans the beginning of the Yellow River section. Coincidentally, the end of the Yellow River section is the 6th town, where the Baxia Bridge is located. The Yellow River section happens to flow under the gaze of the river observation platform, and there are 2 large bridges at one end and one tail of the town. The Guanhe Terrace is located directly west of Jinghua. There is a section of the Yellow River between the two. Starry Moon Plain. The Starry Moon Plain is sandwiched between the Asahi Kingdom and the Elephant Kingdom to the west, forming a narrow plain. Narrow and elongated only refer to the overall terrain. The Starry Moon Plain itself is quite vast, with a land area almost as large as any country in Shugua or Xianxia. The terrain here is flat and the land is fertile, making it an excellent plain. But it does not belong to any of the neighboring countries of Asahi or Elephant. On the contrary, it lies horizontally in the middle, becoming an unowned land and a natural boundary between the two countries. To the north of Xingyue Plain is the state of Zheng, and to the south is the land of Hanging Temple. Zheng and Chu are located at the border of the northern and eastern regions. Zhenggua and Chugua have clear borders. These two countries can even be seen as the boundary between the northern and eastern regions. Xianxia, Shugua, Zhenggua, and the territory of Hanging Temple all clearly border with Xingyue Yuan. Broken Soul Gorge. There is a huge canyon between the land of Chu Kingdom and Dongwang Valley. It is called the Broken Soul Gorge. The length of this canyon even exceeds the straight length of the Dongwang Valley land. Starting from Ronggua to the north of Yanghua, and even reaching deep into the northern desert, it is said that it is not far from the endless flowing sand. Ronggua is located northeast of the Star Moon Plain, and further north is the Broken Soul Gorge. Shinghua is probably the closest force to the Broken Soul Gorge. Book Mountain. The Holy Land of Confucianism. At the foot of Shushan Mountain lies the Magoo Academy, one of the 4 major academies in the world. It can be regarded as the end of the southern world, just like the meteorite forest. Yujing Mountain, one of the 3 holy sites of Daomen, can be regarded as the end of the world's west, like Yuyuan. River Valley Plain. To the south of Dangua is the Valley Plain. To the north of Dan Country, there are Mo Country, Qing Country, and Zhuang Country. The geopolitical environment is very complex. Qin and Chu fought a great war in the Valley Plain, and both sides mobilized strong military forces. This great war can be said to be devastating for both hegemonic powers, but what is even more tragic is actually the Valley Plain, which is treated as a battlefield. All the small countries on the Valley Plain disappeared after this war. Nationalists of various countries either fled south or defected to Qin and Chu. Or there may be those who refused to leave. Buried in the ruins. The entire Valley Plain has become a Jedi. The Valley States no longer exist. Compared to the geographical location of Dan Kingdom, Xian Kingdom and Qiao Kingdom are located to the south of the River Valley Plain. Ju, Steel City, City of Mechanism. Temporarily rest further south from Xianghua. Qichang Mountains to the south of Yonggua and Zhuanggua, except for a small section. Most of the country's borders are separated by the Qichang Mountains. In the northwest direction of Yonggua, there is a small country called Qin. The Qichang Mountains lie between Zhuang and Yong, naturally forming a huge barrier. Xinjiang. The 800-mile Xinjiang River is mostly located within the territory of Zhuang Kingdom. Go west through Zhuang Country. Some countries that have emphasized the description of direction. Zhuanggua, the place where the protagonist was born. To the south is Mo Kingdom. To the southeast is Qinghua. Across the Qichang Mountains lies the state of Yong. These 4 countries have clear borders. In addition, there is a triangular area between Zhuang, Yong, and Luo, which is called the City of Non-Redemption. Zhuang Kingdom and Luo Kingdom in the northwest direction do not directly border, but are indirectly adjacent to each other through the scope of the city that does not redeem. Zhuang Kingdom is not directly adjacent to Yun Kingdom in the northeast direction, but is only connected by continuous high mountains. Later followed by Luo Kingdom and Yun Kingdom, Luogua. To the northwest of Zhuanggua, there is a country named Luo. The northern part of the territory is being traversed by a long river. The long river also runs through the state of Yong. The water network is dense and crisscrossing within the territory of Luogua. Most of the time, Chinese people travel by boat, which has a unique style. Therefore, it is also known as the Water Country. Cloud Country. Yunggua is located northeast of Zhuanggua, with many mountains within its territory. As the capital of Yungue, Yincheng is located on the highest Baoshui mountain in the country. When Cloud City was first established, due to the harsh environment at the foot of the mountain, the Lingxiao pavilion owner turned the mountain into a platform and built the city on a high mountain. Afterwards, when Yun Kingdom rebuilt its main city, it followed this example. Because cities are generally built on high mountains and have extremely high terrain, such as on clouds. Therefore, it is called the Kingdom of Clouds. There are two paths to Shangyun City, one is a cableway connecting other main cities to it, and the other is a huge stone step built from the foot of the mountain, also known as the Dengyun Step. Yunguo was wealthy, so he invited the master of Mahist institutions to lead the design. The major cities are mostly connected by cableways. Danguo-like states such as Xian and Xiao, the Dan Kingdom is also located in the middle zone between the two major hegemonic states of Qin and Chu. Detailed in the Valley Plain section, unlike Xian and Xiao, Dan is much stronger and is a regional power. And politically independent, not subject to any manipulation by Qin or Chu. To the south of Danguo is the Valley Plain. To the north of Dan country, there are Mo country, Qing country, and Zhuang country. Higuo, to the east of Yongguo lies a small country called He, which leads to Tianma Plain. At the same time, Tianma Yuan is located in the north of Yunguo. To the north of Tianma Yuan lies a powerful sect called Renxin Hall, which is a major medical school on par with Dongwang Valley. To the north of Higuo is Jingguo. The vast territory of Jingguo and the once glorious Yongguo are like two giants, one big and one small, half encircling the area near Tianma Plain. The fertile Tianma Plain is also an ownerless land. Yong State and He State have a clear border. Higuo has a clear border with Tianma Yuan. Snow country. As the name suggests, the country is known for its 4 seasons of snowfall. This country is located further northwest and is the farthest country to the northwest within the known range of the world. It is far away from the nearest cold country and is not involved in the affairs of the Northwest Five-Nation Alliance, with less communication with other countries. There is a tendency to hide in a small building and become one, managing his spring, summer, and autumn and winter. The So. Called Northwest Five-Nation Alliance is an alliance composed of Liao, Zhen, Gao, Tai, and Han. Jointly resist the Kingdom of Jing. These 5 countries have clear borders. Snow country and Yujing Mountain are also far apart. Ji Guo. When participating in the Yellow River Conference, the Qi State's team departed from Linzi, went west through Jing State, walked around the north of Jing State, and finally passed through Ji State, from Wu State to Guanhatai. Ji country and Wu country have a clear border. Rongwa and Yangguo to the south have a clear border. Yang State and Qi State to the southeast are clearly adjacent. Rongwa is located to the south of the Broken Soul Gorge and is relatively close to it. Rongwa, Shengguo, Tsuguo, detailed directions can be found in the annotations of the landmarks of the Broken Soul Gorge. Yu State. The state of Yu is to the east of the state of Chu. There is a large area of wilderness in the middle, not directly adjacent to it. Song Dynasty to the north of the state of Chu. There is a large area of wilderness in the middle, not directly adjacent to it. The Song Dynasty should be one of the closest countries to Guanhatai, located in the southwest of Guanhatai. This country upholds Confucianism and governs the country with etiquette. To the west of Longmen Academy is the state of Song, to the east is the state of Wei, and to the north is the Guanha Terrace. When it comes to the distance between Longmen Academy and Guanha Terrace, it is closer than the Song Dynasty. Song and Wei are both great powers, facing each other across the Longmen Academy. The true location of the Nanda Hall is west of the Kingdom of Li, south of the Kingdom of Wei, and north of the Mugu Academy. Song State, Longmen Academy, Wei State, Li State, Mugu Academy, Yu State, Chu State wrap into an ellipse. There is a large expanse of wilderness in the middle. The Kingdom of Li is to the south of the state of Wei and to the west of the state of Xia. There is a large expanse of wilderness separated from Xia Kingdom. Xia Kingdom. The Xia Kingdom once crossed two southeastern regions. It was a great power that once competed with Qi for hegemony. After the defeat, it declined and lost all its territory in the eastern region, and the Liang state in the southern region regained independence, but it is still one of the most powerful countries in the world. The Long River ends at the state of Xia. Xia and Liang have a clear border. But the border is very short. Most of them are viewed through the sphere of influence of the Sword Pavilion. To the southeast of Xia Kingdom lies a continuous and steep mountain range, with the world's major sword towers and vertical swords as peaks. There are more than 10 small countries separated between Xia and Qi. It can be considered as a buffer between two countries. The author's sketch is not complete and can be kept as a field. The state of Qi has a clear border with the southern states of Zhao and Chang. Changhua and Igua have a clear border. Xinghua is the most powerful country under the Dao family, the sword used by the Daoist sect to cut towards the pastoral kingdom. Xinghua has a clear border with the grasslands. There are many other small countries between Xinghua and Qinghua Academy. The sketch was not drawn and can be used as a representation of the wilderness on the map. Qinghua Academy is one of the 4 major academies in the world. There are also large areas of wilderness between Jinghua and Jinghua. A large area of wilderness is left around Jinghua. Chapter 1. His amazing perseverance has no audience. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The sun hangs in the high sky, casting its light and heat evenly on the earth. Not distinguishing between old and young, not distinguishing between high and low. Great love is like heartlessness. When young deer wade the stream, birds fly through the forest. At first, only a dark red spot could be seen shining on the horizon, blinking and approaching. The flame tail forms a thread of fire, like a divine wielding a pen, cutting through the sky. Thousands of miles of mountains and rivers in Zhuanghua were almost swept by this line of fire, and suddenly a black light rose into the sky, blocking the way ahead. There is a cold connection established between heaven and earth, with surging vitality. Southeast, northwest, connected by the sudden rise of evil spirits. The sky in the northeast direction of Zhuanghua is shrouded in dark clouds. It's sunny and sometimes dark. A muffled snort echoed in the air. 9 Sha Xianyin. The light spot only entangled with the evil cloud for a moment before falling from the sky. The dots of light fall faster and bigger as they appear, until the end roaring like a star falling. The outskirts of Fenglin city are rarely inhabited. Only a small Taoist temple has long been dilapidated and abandoned. Boom! The fire fell to the ground, creating a huge pit, but it seemed to be restrained by some force, and the aftermath did not expand. As the smoke and dust dissipated, a man in a flame robe appeared. This person has a sword eyebrow in his temples, a handsome appearance, and a gorgeous and elegant red flame robe, showing great nobility. It was only at this moment that the hair on the temples was scattered and there were cracks in the robe, which made a bit of embarrassment appear. I never imagined that I, Zhuo Guangliya, would die in such a remote and impoverished place. The man in the flame robe's eyes flickered, and he knew everything around him. With an inexplicable sense of melancholy, he asked, "What is the name of this place?" "It's day and dark again, and a meteorite is falling." A few beggars living in the dilapidated temple had already lost their control and were kowtowing incessantly in front of the gate. When they heard a question, one person trembled and said, "Immortal." "Immortal Master, this is the outskirts of Fenglin city. This Taoist temple. We don't even know its name." The man in the flame robe moved his fingers slightly and wanted to erase these beggars. In today's era of great struggle, countries are constantly conquering. But in recent years, there has been no war as intense as the Qin-Chu Great Union War. Both sides have invested nearly 100,000 cultivators, and the valley plain at the center of the battle is devoid of grass, with a subsidence of hundreds of miles. As the core figure of the failed side, Yuther almost broke through the Hangdu Pass alone, almost reversing the battle situation, and there is no need to complain about being chased from heaven and earth. However, these beggars are also beggars from the Zhuang kingdom. Qiankun dared to secretly assist Qin and let him set up an ambush and kill within the territory. These people would all die. But he flipped his hand and extinguished the sparks that sprouted from his fingertips. Left Guanlia, is this your talent? Blaming anger at these pitiful people who are not cared for at all. Zhuo Guanlia murmured and sighed, you guys go. He turned his head and turned his gaze towards the ink-stained sky. The strong ones hidden in the dark, approaching like a pack of wolves, are the ones that left Guanlia should kill. If beggars are granted amnesty, they will get up and run. Only the beggar who answered first hesitated for a moment in front of the broken temple, but his companion beside him fiercely stumbled and said, do you want to die? These beggars ran wildly, probably never running for themselves like this in their entire lives. Zhuo Guanlia didn't shift his gaze, but his brow furrowed slightly. Don't take your companions away. Within his spiritual insight, there are no secrets. The wooden statues of gods in Taoist temples have long disappeared, or have been burned as firewood by beggars. But there was still a weak beggar lying under the altar, motionless, probably counting days waiting to die. That was why the beggar hesitated before. The words of the mysterious immortal were something that beggars dared not ignore, and they even rushed back in droves. Give it your all, panting heavily. But in the eyes of some who have invested in this place, they are not more tenacious than an ant, nor slightly faster than a snail. It's really too slow. Whoosh! 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 The dense and sharp whistling that suddenly approached that day, countless translucent water arrows flew like swarms of locusts, gathered by some force and shot towards the left side of Guanlia. The water element is surging wildly in this world. The semi-transparent arrow rain is shaped like a huge funnel, covering half of the sky. This is a highly representative large-scale destructive Taoist technique of the Qin army, known as the 10,000 flows arrow rain. Here we go. Zhuo Guanlia looked up at the sky, and the strong wind stirred his flame robe and long hair. He raised his right hand high. The wide sleeves of the red flame robe slid down, revealing arms carved like jade. Fair and powerful. A red light ball was born in his palm, and in the next moment, the light shone brightly. Intense strong light radiates in all directions. Just like Zhuo Guanlia, who raised a sun with one hand. This is his unique Taoist technique, which rose to fame at the age of 15 at the Yellow River Festival. Blazing sun. Countless translucent water arrows refracted the sunlight falling from the sky into a colorful hue, and in the next instant, they were dyed red. That was an incredibly fierce and fiery red. With the left Guanglia's right hand as the center, the sky, which is 100 zhang radius, is shrouded in red, with countless arrows and rain as one void. This scene is so magnificent that it is difficult for anyone to notice the scattered ink marks at the corners of the painting. Before the scorching sun spread, countless arrows had already flown away and fallen. The group of running beggars fell to the ground one after another. The body is densely packed with holes that run through it. They didn't even have a chance to scream and died. Life is so fragile. Is indiscriminate killing also your way? Zhuo Guanglia's mouth curved with a hint of sarcasm, and he didn't know who he was speaking to, but his eyes, shining like stars, had gradually become cold. Whoever dares to stay behind when killing Zhuo Guanglia is a complete idiot. The cultivator wearing a frost-patterned robe descended from the sky. This person has a thin face and a pale complexion. His narrow eyes stared tightly at Zhuo Guanglia and said, "Even a mere ant is in your eyes." As he spoke, a group of Xianpao cultivators who had fallen with him had already sealed off the four sides, pinching the Tao to make a decision. A series of 18 semi-transparent water snakes suddenly formed, howling and crossing in the air, devouring the left light. These people have surprisingly consistent movements, from appearance to action, without wasting a breath of time. The binding of the Qin snake, a low-level Taoist technique, is particularly fierce and ferocious under their skillful manipulation. Zhuo Guanglie's face remained unchanged, and as he pulled with both hands, a flame sword formed in his palm. Ram white. He casually held the flame blade and turned several times in the air before cutting the invading water snake in two. Since even the 9 Sha Xianin formation has been moved here, why waste our lives with such boring Taoist techniques? Bored. Do you think? Ram Bai spread out his hands in front of him and suddenly lifted them up. Is this your game? The body of the water snake that fell to the ground not only did not melt, but also jumped up one after another in the next moment, with a severed tail and a head, half of which continued to tail. 1 divides into 2, 2 divides into 4. This is a brand new change in the binding of kin snake, which can be said to have given this Taoist art a new life and given it a broader application space. Achieved the chaotic water snake cave. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The sound is piercing and heart-wrenching. The dense and ferocious water snake surrounded Zhuo Guanglie, with no gap within sight. But the noisy snake's hiss could not conceal his clear and firm voice. Ing Wu is willing to call even the 9 Sha Xianin formation, so I deserve to die. But this Taoist temple doesn't even have a name. How could this unnamed place be qualified to bury my left Guanglie? Flames suddenly rose from the surface of the left bright body. Burning fiercely, waving teeth and claws. This fire ignites upon encountering objects, forming a line with dots and spreading instantly. At the age of 17, he used the technique of starting a prairie fire to burn and kill thousands of evil spirits, shaking the edge of the wilderness. The entire chaotic water snake cave burned, and countless water snakes struggled and hissed in the flames, turning into water vapor. Amidst the steaming and howling water vapor, Zhuo Guanglie rose to the sky, his long hair flamboyant and imposing. At this moment, a sudden cry of eagles rises. A black giant eagle fell from high altitude, facing left Guanglie with its wings fluttering suddenly. Hundreds of iron feathers roared with the light of the sword, each with a different blade style, fierce or sinister, but fused into one furnace. The sword light was like a sudden rain, pouring down in torrents, causing Zhuo Guanglie to be reborn and beheaded into the snake cave. Momin mechanism beast, sword feather flying eagle. On the back of the flying eagle, a barefoot man with a mask on his face and a copper box hanging from his back stood up in the wind, silent. Or rather, his words are already in the light of the sword. With the support of the 9 Sha Xianin formation, thousands of snakes are growing wildly and constantly giving birth. The technique of starting a prairie fire was lost for a long time and slowly dissipated. Long-term defense is inevitable, and water snakes kept chiseling wounds on Zhuo Guanglie's body, with bleeding flowers. Zhuo Guanglie snorted at most and waved his flame knife with one hand, only cutting back the water snake that was attacking the vital point. 10,000 snakes devour the body, and Xian cuts the soul. This kind of pain is unbearable. But Zhuo Guanglie pinched the formula with one hand and waved the knife with the other, without any hesitation. Clearly, his forehead has bulging veins. Dongyang White clasped his 10 fingers and held them up in front of him. His long hair turned calm and he said, "Left Guanglie, tie your hands now, and you can still have a whole corpse sent back to your homeland." The temperature suddenly dropped, and a white frost condensed on his eyebrows. The entire chaotic water snake cave has frozen into ice sculptures. This is a secret technique of the famous Dongyang family in the state of Qin, known as the Xianbing dungeon. Those who enter this dungeon will breathe a breath of condensed frost, freeze their blood flow, and freeze their body with 3 breaths. The water snake froze into an ice snake, and Zhuo Guanglie was also covered in white frost. Ram Bai stared silently at all of this, and the next breath was the freezing of blood flow. But he suddenly heard the sound of the rushing river, which was surging and surging like raging waves. It was the blood of Zhuo Guanglie rushing. How could the great rivers be frozen in winter? The process of violent blood riots seemed to explode into an ancient voice, like pain and fanaticism, boil. Blood. Burn. Soul. The flame robe is burning, long hair is burning, eyebrows and eyes are burning, flesh and blood are burning, soul is burning. Body and mind, life and soul, everything is burning. Both Can Snake and Xian Bing are collapsing in an instant. In the vast expanse of water vapor, Zhuo Guanglian bathed in flames all over his body. He looked down at his fiery hands, as if feeling the power of the imperial ban. And then suddenly looked at the sword feather flying eagle in the sky. At the moment when his gaze met, the iron-faced man decisively fell down. That precious sword feather flying eagle burned to ashes in an instant. Left Guanglian made a mistake in his hands, and fireworks bloomed in the air, instantly spreading into a sea of flames. The blazing flames burned the sky and the earth. Even the 9 Sha Xianing formation, where the Sha clouds gather in the sky, seems to have become the firewood for the raging fire. This technique of burning the city with fireworks can be said to be the most genius creation of Zhuo Guanglian. At the age of 19, he used this technique to destroy the city in one battle. The flower of flames is extremely beautiful and has ultimate power. The iron-faced man had his hands wide open during the fall, 10 fingers spread out, and each finger was connected to a semi-transparent silk thread. The other end of the silk thread penetrated deep into the copper box and suddenly pulled out. Puppet Flying Crow. His 10 fingers pierced like flowers, and a dense puppet crow flew out of the copper box, charging towards the fireworks. Every puppet crow can extinguish a ball of fireworks, but the fireworks seem endless, while the puppet crow is limited. Gong Bai ignored the backlash from the broken Xianbing dungeon and pressed his index finger against his chin, suddenly opening his mouth. The vast white cold mist gushed out of his mouth, and wherever it surged, the fireworks disappeared. The secret technique of Gongyang's bloodline is to nourish one's qi and turn it into frost. The 18 Xianpao cultivators he brought along also practiced the secret along with him. The white mist generated by the collision of fireworks and frost converges into clouds at high altitude. Suddenly, a torrential rain poured down, howling through the air. The combination of 18 friars has made this rainstorm continuous. Fireworks, frost, and sudden rain coexist briefly in mid-air, creating a magnificent spectacle. In this scene, the handsome man in the flame robe suddenly looked up and howled, the power of extreme inflammation, burning the sky and boiling the sea, wishing to merge with the true ancestor, come into my body. Inside him, a warm flame that was completely different from others suddenly swelled up. Just the change of this expansion, flying crows spontaneously ignite, clouds suddenly disperse, and rainstorm disappears. In an instant, all the voices and colors were taken away. Gongyang's pale face suddenly changed and he said, "Where did he come from, the seed of Zhu Rong? How could he possibly activate Zhu Rong's true body? This is Zhuo Guanglian." The iron-faced man spread a pair of mechanism iron wings on his back, hanging on the side of the ram's white body, and his voice was solemn and could not be dispelled. Almost with his own strength, he killed the people who penetrated Hanggu Pass. In the infinitely expanding power of the fire path, the left Guanglian 7 orifices burned flames. Come on. Mo Jingyu. Ram White. With a casual wave of his hand, the fire dragon tore through the air, forcing the Gongyang Bai and others to retreat in succession. What prestigious family! Aristocratic family! Genius! Do you dare to falsely claim it in front of me? He seemed to be driven crazy, irrational, and emotionally charged by the seed of Zhu Rong. Shame on the family and hate for the country, the river and sea are difficult to wash away. The battle of the valley has been defeated, and he seems to hear the mournful cries of all the families of Chu. It was as if in flames, seeing his father who died in battle at the age of 14. As if talking to him. Speaking. What? Zhuo Guanglian laughed heartily, tears streaming from his laughter, but his tears were instantly burned dry. The great head is here, who can cut it? Behind him, there was a majestic and supreme divine phantom holding a dragon in hand. He finally burned everything and melted it into the fire. Only I am the one who kills me, and only Zhurong is the one who burns my soul. In his burning eyes, he finally lost all emotions. Only the coldest killing intent fell on these besiegers. Death. Mo Jingyu turned his back and wanted to lift the copper box on his back, using his last resort to save his life. But his hands kept trembling, unable to exert any force. In his spiritual perception, there is no wilderness, no broken view, and even no one. Only fire, only boundless flames and waves. The fierce flames almost twisted the space and almost incinerated his thoughts. Before such a powerful force, what was the difference between him and the dead beggars before him? On the horizon, there is a cold light coming from the west. Just as I scanned this scene, Gong Yangbai had the illusion of having his eyes cut. There was no time to explore, because only in the moment he saw it, the cold light had already escaped to Zhuo Guangliye and passed by. Zhuo Guangliye's roar came to an abrupt end. It's really noisy. The young man dressed in white suddenly appeared. He has an extremely cold face, standing sideways as if forever keeping a distance from the world. He slowly drew his sword back into its sheath, and his voice remained calm without any fluctuation. Zhuo Guangliye's head suddenly fell and his bones rolled twice on the ground, but due to using boiling blood to burn his soul, there was not a drop of blood that could be sprayed. Until now, a piercing roar like thunder sounded in the air. That's the sound of a man in white coming westward with a sword, cutting through the sky. Gong Yangbai and Mo Jingyu exchanged a glance, both seeing the huge shock in each other's eyes. Li Yi, I have been ordered by His Highness Ing Wu. But just as Gong Yangbai said this, he just shut up and immediately picked up Zhuo Guangliye's head, turned around, and flew away. Because the man in white had already turned his gaze to him. His hair, eyebrows, eyes, and even the corners of his lips are as sharp as swords. His eyes, however, were calm and almost warm. But in this warmth, there is a chilling coldness. Whether it is a genius figure who has inherited the tradition of the ancient Mahist school, or a famous family with numerous bloodlines in the world. No one dares to ask why, no one dares to say one more word. Zhuo Guangliye died, but the spark of Zhurong in his body did not dissipate and was still slowly expanding. This power is not beyond the control of Zhuo Guangliye, who has run out of oil. He is just an introduction, a medium, using his genius and determination to allow the great power of Zhurong's true body to be released in this world for a moment. The man in white shook out a black token and stared silently. The black token remained silent for a long time before a domineering voice rang out. Liangqing. As soon as the words fell, the token, made of extraordinary material, seemed unable to withstand the sound and instantly shattered into countless black shavings, sliding through Li Yi's fingers and falling softly. Until all the Taoists had left and the tokens in their hands had shattered, Li Yi tilted his head slightly and looked at the expanding Zhurong flame. He extended a slender and fair hand, his fingers folded into pockets. Until now, when no one could notice, he showed a childlike innocence amidst his usual warmth and indifference. Gently shout, bang. At the same time as the 5 fingers opened, it happened to be the time when the seed of Zhurong exploded. An invisible force restrained the explosion, preventing it from spreading and only blasting the body of Zhuo Guangliye into countless pieces of flesh. The crimson flame blooms freely in the small world, shining brilliantly in an instant and radiating brilliantly in all directions. This ultimate beauty is only appreciated for him alone. Li Yi's mouth slightly curled up, but it only converged in an instant. The fireworks have run out. He didn't look at what was left behind in Zhuo Guangliye's body, let alone any attachment. His body was shining with sword light, and he flew away in an instant. From beginning to end, in this battle that occurred outside the nameless Puguan, no one paid any attention to it. For powerful cultivators, it is difficult to overlook the weak Zhuang kingdom. For the 3,000-mile land of Zhuang kingdom, Maple Forest City is also as small as dust. Even in the small Maple Forest City itself, this dilapidated view in the countryside has long been forgotten. But in this dilapidated Taoist temple, there is not no one. That is a beggar on the brink of death. He is ready to die and is also waiting, but he has not died yet and has been listening to this exciting battle from beginning to end. When the battle is over, everything returns to silence. He is still alive. He may be lucky, but the word luck is so inconsistent with him. His tattered clothes, emaciated and sickly appearance, and even his almost wandering breathing are all elaborating on the definition of misfortune. But he is still alive after all. He thought for a moment, worked hard to turn over, and found the Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com and rolled out from under the altar. He gritted his teeth and used all his strength, struggling and shaking to stand up. After all, he stood up. Moving from the altar to the outside of the Taoist temple, there were a total of 137 steps. Moving from the entrance of the Taoist temple to the body of Zhuo Guanglia, there were a total of 324 steps. The beggar silently counted the steps he moved and kept telling himself that it was almost there. It's almost there. Every muscle in my body is protesting and trembling. No one knows where the strength came from to propel him forward. His astonishing perseverance has no audience. Now he stood in front of the body of Zhuo Guanglia, and the journey had finally come to an end. If that pile of broken meat could still be called a corpse. He squatted down slowly, which was too strenuous, so he decided to sit down. He is really sick, and from the stains that make his face difficult to distinguish, one can still see a weak and pale complexion. His hands were even trembling. Groping through the pile of minced meat. Shredded meat, bone fragments, broken metal, shredded meat, finger bones, unrecognizable half-pieces of wood. A bottle. Opening the unrecognizable flesh and blood, I discovered this half-cut jade bottle. The bottle mouth was completely blown off, leaving only half of the bottle belly. The beggar suppressed his slightly heavy breathing and brought the jade bottle in front of him. He carefully took off a piece of meat that had been stuffed into the bottle and looked at the bottom of the bottle. He saw the only remaining black and round pill in the bottle, and his breath stopped. He recognized that it was what he had been longing for all day, what he had gained and lost in the end, the Kaimai pill. Chapter 2. The Lord of Dongzhen Village. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Tao Meridian is the foundation of cultivation. This way is not the path of the gate, but the path of the avenue. Regardless of the practitioners of Buddhism, Confucianism, military art, or any other school, they must prioritize the manifestation of the Tao as their first path of cultivation. In ancient times, the so-called seeds of cultivation were those who were born with their own Tao meridians. But the human race is not determined by innate talent for life, and the Kaimai pill is one of the methods to solve the cultivation qualification. Borrow the power of elixirs to manifest the meridians of the human body. It can also unleash the vitality of heaven and earth, nourish the body. Feedback of qi and blood, thus nurturing Tao Yuan and embarking on the path of cultivation. Speaking of which, compared to the tools that were destroyed by the explosion of Zhuo Guanglia, the Kaimai pill should not be considered precious. But for this impoverished beggar, this is the only key to unlocking the treasure of the human body. Through countless hardships, the only one who dies is to beg for mercy on the last mile. Now, the beggar has seized the key to his hope. He is so devout. He held the jade bottle with trembling hands, aimed his trembling lips at the bottle mouth, and tilted his head down. Next to him was a silent spectator, and in the distance were the corpses of a group of beggars, with shattered bones and flesh on their sides. At this moment, the sunset is shining and the clouds are scattered in the sky. The corpse lies horizontally in the wild, while the sick beggar swallows the pill. The Kaimai pill rolled down the tip of the tongue, transforming into a warm stream that flowed down the throat and then scattered into the limbs and bones. The beggar closed his eyes slightly, and at this moment, thousands of images flowed through his mind. Work hard in winter and summer, practice swordsmanship in spring and autumn. Chase the thief and fight against the fierce bandits. In the end, he walked down from the bandit-infested Xishan with a single sword and became a bloody man. This is how I got a pulse-opening pill. How many years has it taken him to approach the extraordinary world? He tried his best, constantly struggling to make progress. How did he get to this point? My mother passed away early, and my father, who later passed away, almost exhausted the last bit of family wealth. He is alone, he is his own support. I was admitted to the Taoist Academy from the competition of pulling out one from 1,000 miles, and finally caught the extraordinary key for the first time in the fiercely competitive outer courtyard. But followed closely behind its just poisoning and encircling. He fought to the death to find a way out, and in order to avoid searching, he infiltrated the beggar's pile. I wanted to wait for the opportunity, but my body can no longer hold on. He became increasingly weak, and finally could only lie hopelessly on a pile of straw, waiting for death. He struggled out with his sick body to search for the battlefield, but with a heart that never gave up, he never expected to find a pulse-opening pill. As strong as Wuxia, why does he carry a pulse-opening pill on his body? This reason has come to an end with his legend and is no longer known. But the story of the beggar continued with a new chapter. Fate is unpredictable, nothing can be better than this. The beggar turned his mind and felt the indescribable changes in his body. He felt the warm energy emanating from every corner of his body, swimming through his body in a way he couldn't understand, ultimately converging towards his spine. This process is slow and clear. After an unknown amount of time, a faint force rose from the coccyx and moved upwards along the spinal line. This feels like an earthworm, swimming upstream in the river channel. This process is very difficult, but the warm power from various parts of the body constantly relies on it. The little earthworm finally swam through this long journey, penetrating the spine line and heading straight towards the heavenly spirit. A miracle has happened. He seemed to see light inside his body. Warmth bursts from every corner of the limbs and flesh. He no longer feels cold, weak, or painful. The Tao meridian appears and nourishes with vitality. The beggar opened his eyes, bright and lively. He felt like he was full of strength, and finally he took control of his destiny once again. His Tao meridian has already appeared. Although the Tao Meridian true spirit is just a lowly little earthworm, it also means that he can officially embark on a path of transcendence. Flying to heaven and escaping to the earth, entering and exiting the blue and dark world, is no longer an unattainable dream. One day, Gong Yangbai, Mo Jingyu, and even Zhuo Guanglia and Li Yi, these thunderous figures, can do anything they can. The beggar stood up and stared at the pile of minced meat under his feet. Staring at life and death, the beginning connects with the end. He buried left Guanglia and those beggars outside the broken temple. Even though his meridian initially showed signs of energy, he didn't finish his work until mid-month. This may be a useless little thing, but it is the truth he practices. Although those beggars chose to give up on him when danger came, they did not abandon him in the wilderness during his dying days. Although we couldn't delay seeking medical treatment for him, we at least gave him a few sips of water to drink. Based on these, within our capabilities, we should also make them settle in the soil. Not to suffer in this lifetime, but to remain helpless in the next. People believe that only by entering the earth can one be safe. In the embrace of the vast and compassionate earth, only dead souls can rest in peace. Finally, the beggar stood in front of Zhuo Guanglia's grave. The person who buried you is not an unknown person, Fenglin City, Qinghe County, Zhuang Province. Under the moonlight, the beggar stood in front of the small grave, dirty and greasy, with mud on his hands, but he straightened his back and said his name with great composure. Jiang Wang. Tigers are not written, but have the aura of eating cows. You didn't die in an unnamed place. This place is called Huanzhen Temple. Although the remaining plaque is difficult to distinguish and unknown, it will surely be known to the world because of you." After saying these words, Jiang Wang bent down and bowed earnestly, "May you have a spirit in heaven and rest in peace." This bow is not only due to the opening pill left by Zhuo Guanglia, but also because of his compassion, magnanimity, and bravery. Figures like Zhuo Guanglia deserve any respect. Tonight is a full moon, and the bright moonlight shines on the new tomb. There seems to be a gentle breeze blowing in the dark. Jiang Wang saw a little silver light floating from the tomb of Zhuo Guanglia, slowly rising in the moonlight and converging into a small, silver crescent moon. It floats above the new tomb, within reach of Jiang Wang, appearing mysterious and noble. This is Jiang Wangfu reaches his soul. He reached out and grabbed the silver crescent moon. My eyes darkened. In the almost endless darkness, a gentle voice rang out. This sound seems to contain the profound principles of heaven and earth, as well as the mysteries of the Great Way. Hearing it makes one's heart clear and divine. Congratulations to the Lord of Dongzhen village's blessed land. In the next moment, a bright light appeared and countless dots of light appeared. Countless lights blocked the view, and when Jiang Wang regained his vision, he saw a brilliant Milky Way surging in the vast darkness before him. And in front of the Milky Way, there hangs a young man. This person has clear eyes, a high and straight nose, and a gentle expression that seems to have no aggression. Only slightly pursed lips show a hint of stubbornness. There is no other decoration on the body except for a Taoist robe with no visible material. Jiang Wang was stunned. Because this young man is himself. Although dressed differently and much cleaner and fresher than his current state, how could he mistake himself? And he is looking at himself from a perspective that he currently cannot understand, in a non-visual sense. Dao Yuan's feedback is insufficient, and the performance stage is sealed on the 19th floor. That gentle voice rang out again in the vast starry sky. The performance stage has 18 layers of seals. The second layer seal of the performance platform. Every time this sentence appears, the Milky Way in front of me becomes dimmer. Jiang Wang tried to understand everything he had observed, and then heard. Seal of the third rank swordsmanship platform. The seal of the fourth grade sword table. As before, it continued until the sealing of the 8th rank swordsmanship platform. Jiang Wang didn't understand the significance behind this, but it seems to be related to his low strength. The called Lord of Dongzhen village's blessed land should be Zhuo Guanglia rather than him. At the same time, he observed a line of text floating within his line of sight that he had never seen before. This writing is completely different from the Zhuang language he studied, which is extremely unfamiliar to him, but he clearly perceives the meaning of these words. Merit. 1850 points. As Jiang Wang pondered, the self he had seen suddenly took a step forward and merged with him. This process was so short that it could almost be omitted. Jiang Wang moved his hands and feet, but everything went well. In this mysterious world, he finally had a physical entity in a certain sense. And in the next moment, the stars in the vast void suddenly churned, and a whole brilliant galaxy rushed towards him. He was submerged in the Milky Way. Time seemed to have lost its meaning as it passed by. When Jiang looked back to his senses, he had already appeared in a space filled with immortal energy, with many messages flowing through his mind at the same time. This is the world of Taishu fantasy realm, and the Dongzhen market, where he is located, is wrapped in this world. The silver crescent he caught is called the virtual key, and finding the Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com is the key to entering here. It uses the power of the Taiyin star to pull the host's spiritual consciousness into the Taishu illusion realm. Everything here is realistic, except that it will not cause damage to the host's physical body. Everything is no different from the real situation. The performance stage is the place for deducing martial arts and techniques, and the consumption required for deducing is called work. The Luanjian Tai is specifically designed to shuttle through the Tai Su illusion and compete with other cultivators. The emergence of merit often comes from battles. In battles of the same rank, if you win, you will receive more merit, and if you lose, you will receive less merit. Higher level challenges have corresponding bonuses. There are also some other ways. For example, the corresponding heaven and earth will regularly produce achievements. Among the 70.2 blessed areas, the lowest ranked one is Dongzhen blessed area, which produces 100 merits per month. And for every level up in the 36 blessed places, the output power is increased by 10. For each level of advancement in the 36 blessed places, 100 points of merit will be added. Zhuo Guanlie ranks 23rd in the blessed land of Dongzhen village, with a monthly output of 1,850 points of merit. This is Jiang Wang's current resources and provisions. Although the specific effect is not yet clear, Jiang Wang has already heard his intense heartbeat. This place. This place. This world of brilliant stars seems to harbor huge secrets. Just the performance stage and argumentative stage it presents unfold a vast and turbulent world. How magnificent is it to perform the Tao in a blessed land and debate the sword in the Milky Way. Before today, Jiang Wang had not even heard of its name. His mood was turbulent and difficult to calm for a moment, until he turned his gaze to a sundial shadow and saw this line of text. The Lord of Blessed Land will accept the challenge from the Lord of Blessed Land's 24 green jade altars in 30 days. Failure will result in demotion. The 5 characters are as black as ink, and the characters resemble 1,000 June. Chapter 3. This hatred is hard to repay. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looking outside, in front of the new tomb, Jiang Wang opened his eyes. The small silver moon fell into the palm of his right hand, transforming into a silver moon imprint and then disappearing. But Jiang Wang could still clearly perceive its existence. It did not have any power, but would reappear when Jiang Wang thought, hooking up with the Taiyin star and bringing his spiritual consciousness into the mysterious and unpredictable Taishu illusion. He did not explore in the illusion of Taishu for too long, and the countryside he was in was not a place to explore with peace of mind. Not to mention whether there will be cultivators from Fenglin City rushing to investigate after the aftermath of the powerful cultivators fighting here dissipates. For Jiang Wang himself, he also has more pressing matters. If I remember the time correctly, 3 days later will be the time for selecting students in the inner courtyard of Fenglin Taoist Academy. Once he misses this point in time, it will be difficult for him to find an opportunity. An opportunity for revenge. Because the students in the inner courtyard are the truly recognized disciples of the Taoist Academy by the Zhuang Kingdom, and Taoist Academy disciples should not be lightly humiliated, let alone killed. Finally, looking back at the dilapidated Taoist temple that had been supporting the illness for many days, Jiang Wang strode away in the moonlight. In front of the broken observation gate, there were overgrown weeds, and a gust of wind blew by, allowing moonlight to scatter on the old plaque lying on the ground for many years. The handwriting on it is blurry, but the word "still true" can be vaguely outlined. The moonlight breaks through the new tomb, the wind pierces through the leaves and sand. Like someone's sigh. Fenglin City is actually not small, and for many generations of people living here, even this is the whole world. Except for the city lord who represents the will of the Zhuang Kingdom, the surnames Zhang, Fang, and Wang are the masters of this local territory. The night was deep, and the back door of the leaning green building was pushed open. Amidst the plump laughter of a plump girl, the man in a long shirt with a collar and slits on both sides walked out unsteadily, his body filled with a strong alcohol smell that further enhanced his sense of satisfaction. He is called Fang Dicai. The character, Fang, is not easy. He has been serving the Fang family for 3 generations since his grandfather's generation, and only then did he receive this surname. It is precisely because he relies on the Fang family as his confidant that he has such abundant resources and can enter an enchanting cave like the Itsue Tower once a month. He suddenly pinched his beloved sister again before laughing heartily and leaving. The plump girl looked at him with embarrassment and annoyance, muttering a few coquettish words in her mouth. Until his back was far away in the alley, he spat and said, "This dog is a powerful thing." He slammed the small door tightly shut. She also didn't notice that a man in tattered clothes was already close behind Fong-Detsai. Fong-Detsai had some martial arts skills in his possession. When he felt something was wrong, he suddenly lifted his fist and turned around, but the opponent only slapped him casually and broke up his fist fight. Immediately after, his throat was choked and he rose into the air, being heavily pressed against the wall. Compared to the rapid swelling and pain on his face, the gradually difficult breathing made him even more afraid of that face. Gentle and calm, Jiang Wang's face. Jiang. Jiang. Fong-Detsai struggled in fear with his choked throat. Who instructed you, Fong family, or Fong Pengju? Who else is involved in this matter? What poison is in the wine? How did you contact the bandits of Shishan? Jiang Wang asked these questions slowly, and just before Fong-Detsai suffocated, he finally let go and said, "Now, slowly tell me." He looked up at the moonlight and said, "We have a lot of time." The evening breeze gently pushed the clouds, slightly masking the moonlight. The whispers in this alley were as gentle as the whispers of evil spirits. That night, the bright moon blew the wind in the sky, and the undead had returned to the city. When the sky was bright, Jiang Wang stood at the entrance of Fenglin City Daoyuan. Zhuangguo regards Taoism as its national religion, and the strongest extraordinary power naturally comes from Taoism, as evidenced by the Taoist academies located in 3 counties and cities throughout the country. The monastery is not only the preferred place for young people in Zhuang country to practice, but even officials at all levels need to have a resume of studying in the monastery in order to conform to the public. Therefore, in terms of the entire Fenglin city, the most expensive place may not be the Lord's Mansion or any of the 3 major surnames, but the Fenglin City Taoist Academy. The Daomen passed down by the Zhuang kingdom belong to the Yujing mountain family, which is the most important ritual. Therefore, the entire monastery was also built in a magnificent manner. Not to mention anything else, the pair of jade lions squatting on either side of the gate are extremely majestic and noble. Jiang Wang's clothes were still worn out, and upon closer inspection, there was even a sour smell. He simply washed his face and casually tied his messy hair behind his head. He stood in front of the gate of the Taoist temple, with his head and chest held high and pulled out like a pine tree. The outer disciple on duty rubbed his eyes again and again before he couldn't believe it and shouted, "Jiang! Senior brother Jiang!" Jiang Wang nodded and gestured, "Hello, junior brother Wu." As the most hard-working external disciple in the Fenglin City Taoist Academy, he has participated in countless Taoist missions. As long as he has been an external disciple for more than a year, there is basically no one who does not know him. Junior brother Wu turned around and ran into the monastery, shouting excitedly, "Senior brother Jiang Wang is back! Senior brother Jiang Wang is back!" In no time, many disciples from outside rushed to the gate of the monastery, filling it tightly. Senior brothers and junior brothers kept shouting incessantly. It can be seen that Jiang Wangping has a high reputation among the disciples of the outer sect. Among dozens of external disciples, a few have outstanding personalities. Even in the crowded environment, the crowd instinctively gave them a way out. Wang Badu, surnamed Jiang. Where have you been hiding these days? I thought you were dead, damn it. The one who started shouting from a long distance is Du Yehu. As he ran, his muscle blocks seemed to explode at any moment. His face is also unique, with a big beard and a beard all over his face. At that station, just looking at his face, he was 2 or 3 rounds larger than the outer disciples around him. Some people believed that he came from somewhere, but he didn't look like an 18-year-old boy. Due to the rapid development, he is known as the Young Hu. He was like a bear squeezed out of the crowd, holding on to Jiang Wang with a ring and ignoring the faint sour smell on his body. He kept saying, "Oh my God! Oh my God! Just come back." As soon as he came back, his eyes were bloodshot, and his lips were trembling. It was Lingyi. His face is upright, the sky is full, and he appears to be a calm and composed person. At this moment, standing behind Du Yehu in a whitewashed practice suit, he looked at Jiang Wang with such composure. Only a handsome young man approached and looked up and down at Jiang Wang before pointing to his tattered clothes and laughing, "Why did you mix up like this?" His name is Zhao Rucheng. His appearance is the most outstanding, and the smile on his face seems slightly frivolous. But only those who truly know him can see the faint tears in his charming smiling eyes. These people have different appearances and personalities, but they are all close friends with Jiang Wang. In many trial tasks outside, they work together to overcome countless difficulties and dangers, and had already formed a deep friendship. But Jiang Wang's gaze crossed over them and only turned to the handsome young man in the crowd whose eyes seemed to turn red. He didn't speak or move much, but just stood there, vaguely at the center of the crowd. "Pengju, it's been 57 days. Jiang Wang paused almost word by word, "I think of you every day. Just want Pengju, don't you want second brother?" Du Yehu grabbed Jiang Wang's shoulder and shook it, shouting wildly. Lingyi and Zhao Rucheng remained silent. 57 days is a very specific and sensitive time, exactly 57 days before Jiang Wang's disappearance. Fong Peng, dressed in luxurious brocade, approached with a smile and said, "Just come back. Everyone has been worried about you these days." "Yeah," Jiang Wang also smiled. "Why don't you worry if you can't see the body?" Fong Pengju's face changed and he said, "What do you mean by this sentence? After you had an accident, my heart was burning. Send people everywhere to look for you." "Jiang Wang," you said, "that's why I didn't dare to show up until today." "Jiang Wang. It's the remnants of the bandits from Xishan who attacked you, and everyone knows about it. Do you actually suspect me?" Fong Peng's face turned red and he looked extremely angry. "We, the 5 heroes of Fenglin, are like brothers. Did you hear some rumors by mistake?" Lingyi, Du Yehu, Jiang Wang, Fong Pengju, and Zhao Rucheng are all the most outstanding figures among the disciples of the outer courtyard of the Fenglin City Taoist Academy. Due to their mutual affinity, they often accompany each other to sweep bandits, enter and exit together, and are known as the 5 heroes of the Maple Forest. Feeling the instantly solemn atmosphere, the disciples from the outer courtyard who came to greet Jiang Wang began to feel uneasy. Did Fong Pengju harm Jiang Wang? Don't talk nonsense, Fong Pengju has always been righteous. How could he do such a thing? It must be a misunderstanding. I don't think so. Senior brother Jiang is not a fool to be fooled by. The crowd whispered softly. They are all our own brothers, don't talk nonsense. Du Yehu stared at Jiang Wang, his face very anxious. His intuition is not good, but there is nothing he can do to stop the next thing. Lingyi thought for a moment and spoke out to advise, "Third, I believe you have also experienced many things and suffered a lot during this period. Why not settle down first? In a few days, the inner court will be selecting students. This is a lifelong matter that needs to be treated carefully. The group of bandits in Xishan have already been jointly suppressed by us. If there are any hidden secrets in this, you can slowly sort them out. If you have any grievances, our brothers will definitely help you, even if it causes trouble to the county road court or the national road court, we will not hesitate. Pengju is our brother who swore a blood oath together, and I believe there must be some misunderstanding among them. Perhaps someone instigated it." "Big brother." Jiang Wang interrupted him, "When did I speak without hesitation? I cherish this brotherly relationship as much as you do. So if I say that today, it means that this is indeed the case." Fong Pengju. Jiang Wang turned his head to look at the young man in brocade and pointed out, "I hope you can still be so righteous after opening this box." Only then did everyone notice that there was still a large box behind Jiang Wang. No matter what happens, Fong Pengju will never harm his friends. Fong Pengju was only stunned for a moment before exclaiming, I will personally see what kind of evidence it is that can make the third brother suspect his own brother. He strode outside the courtyard, pulled out his long sword from his waist, and with one strike, lifted open the lid of the box. Inside the box, a man of various colors was exposed, stuffed with rags in his mouth. When he saw Fong Pengju, his expression was extremely anxious, and he desperately whimpered non-stop. Du Yehu and Lingyi also fell silent. They all recognized that this was Fong Datsai, a close servant of Fong Pengju. That day, your servant sent a post saying that you invited me to drink at the Moon Tower. When I went, you hadn't arrived yet, so he advised me to have a few drinks first and try the fine wine you specially sent. The poison in that wine is the yin-yang powder separated by two. As soon as the toxicity was triggered, bandits broke through the door and attacked. I personally defeated the bandits from Xishan, but unexpectedly, in this Fonglin city, I was almost killed by a group of remnants. Jiang Wang's voice rang out softly, so the first thing I did to recover was to go find Fong Datsai. Fong Pengju remained silent for a moment, and in the next moment, his long sword was urgently sent away. Animal! Our Fong family treats you well. How dare you collude with the bandits, forge letters, and harm my third brother? This sword is both fast and accurate, with blood splattering. Fong Datsai suddenly twitched, whimpering a few times in his throat, and finally remained motionless like a dead dog. From beginning to end, he didn't even have time to say a word to defend himself. Fong Pengju. No one present is a fool. Although Du Yehu is rough, it does not mean he is foolish. This will make his tiger eyes wide open and anger surge. Second brother. Fong Peng raised his long sword with blood dripping down his face, full of shame. I was furious for a moment and just wanted to kill this beast to vent my anger on third brother. It's okay. Jiang Wang watched as Fong Pengju finished his performance before shaking out a piece of paper from his pocket, which had dense handwriting. Here is Fong Datsai's confession and inscription. Do Pengju want to take a look? Bang! Fong Peng casually abandoned his long sword and knelt down abruptly. I don't even know what's written on it, but I can only say that the bandits from the West Mountain have never given up on me. I don't know how much it cost to make the beast Datsai so determined. But believe me, third brother. I have always been honest and straightforward, and have never done anything wrong. No matter what the cause of this matter is, my Fong family will definitely give you an explanation. I will reward you 10,000 yuan, and I will definitely eliminate the bandits and thieves from a 100-mile radius to wash third brother's hatred. In the crowd, some disciples from the outer courtyard also spoke up and said, yes, senior brother Jiang, you 5 heroes of the Fonglin city are all heroes. You are the pride of the outer courtyard of our Fonglin City Taoist Academy. Don't be provoked by villains. My mother was seriously ill before, and it was senior brother Fong who generously donated money. I believe he is not this kind of person. There was also someone spitting at Fong Datsai's corpse, saying, such a wicked servant would not hesitate to die, even tarnishing the reputation of senior brother Fong and the brotherhood of the 5 heroes of the Bad Maple Forest. If he were still alive, I wish I could cut him to pieces. You fellow disciples don't need to speak too much. Fong Peng waved his hand to stop everyone's discussion and took a few steps on his knees to sincerely look at Jiang Wang. After third brother went missing, I led people to search everywhere and cried uncontrollably several times. I know all about third brother's loyalty and righteousness, and heaven and earth can learn from it. But even though I have a clear conscience, I went to Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. But if I didn't trust wealth and third brother trusts me, how could there be an opportunity for this beast to take advantage of? All the blame lies with me, and I am willing to bear it with all my strength. I am willing to pay all my personal belongings to pay for the pain of my third brother, I am willing to be whipped to avoid the fallacy of faith, I am willing to fight alone against bandits, vowing to eliminate the remaining evils of the Western Mountains, and the remaining evils will never cease. I will not return to the city. I am willing to do this, not to compensate. Third brother almost died, and this hatred is hard to repay. It's just our brother's fight, and I can't forgive myself. If Fang Pengju finally burst into tears and gritted his teeth, if third brother still hates me, then pick up this long sword and kill me with one strike. Pengju has no complaints. Everyone's gaze fell on the blood-stained long sword that was thrown to the ground. Senior brother Fang, you can't do this. I believe it's not your fault. How can a big man easily die? In this scene, viewers were all moved and spoke out to dissuade. Even Lingyi remained silent for a while before speaking again. Third and fourth, this matter. Jiang Wang waved his torn sleeve and straightened his spine, saying, Pengju, I once carried a burden on you, and you also stood up for me. We, the 5 brothers, have lived and died together. Whether Lingyi, Du Yehu, or Zhao Rucheng, they were all deeply touched. The blood and tears they experienced together, the days they fought together, the joy they spent together. Only they themselves knew. Is the meaning of living and dying together something that can be expressed in just a few words? Third brother. Fang Peng lowered his head and for a moment, tears streamed down his face. He couldn't help but cry, it's all my younger brother's fault. I shouldn't have believed in evil servants, it almost caused a big disaster. But since Pengju said that. Jiang Wang said slowly, then third brother, it's better to obey than to be respectful. Chapter 4. Please die to the end. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Jiang Wang's words fell into place, and without hesitation, he drew his sword and chopped it off. What? The cold light suddenly appeared, and Fang Pengju rolled and crawled to avoid this sword, feeling extremely angry and embarrassed. Besides, not a single person present reacted. Almost everyone thought that the next scene would be a brotherly reconciliation, with deep affection and even a passing tale. No one expected that with everyone's attention and brotherly affection, Jiang Wang would actually wield a sword. Pengju. Jiang Wang looked at him with a smile at the corner of his mouth, but his smile was particularly cold. Why did you hide from the promise of pulling your neck and waiting for slaughter? Fang Peng raised his handsome face and stood up from the ground, gritting his teeth to look at him. Third brother, do you really disregard any brotherly feelings? Shameless bastard. At this point, Du Yehu was already furious. I was blind before I became brothers with you. He was about to rush over as he spoke, but was stopped by Jiang Wang's hand. Second brother, let me handle this myself. Fang Peng glared angrily and said, Du Yehu. What's up with you? Fang Pengju, you have disappointed me so much. Lingyi, who has always been generous, couldn't hold back his anger. He took a step forward, drew his sword from his waist, cut off a corner of his robe, and threw it heavily on the ground. From now on, we will cut off our robes and sever our righteousness. Big brother. Fang Peng chuckled bitterly and said, second brother's impulsiveness is all that matters. Can't you even understand me? To prove my innocence, I am willing to die, but my parents are just my son. I am their only hope, and I cannot let go of death. My life is not my own, how can I die here? Jiang Wang trusts treacherous people, doesn't listen to explanations, and is determined to put me to death. Does he have brotherly feelings in his heart? Fourth brother, this is the last time I'll call you fourth brother, said Zhao Rucheng, the youngest of the Fenglin 5 heroes. He had a slightly childish expression on his face, but he was already extremely handsome. At this moment, he spoke like a golden jade, landing in a voice. Fang De Kai surnamed Fang. Serve your Fang family for generations. What conditions can a group of defeated bandits offer to bribe him? Are you insulting the wealth of your Fang family, or are you insulting the wisdom of all of us? How did a group of defeated dogs from Xishan sneak into Fenglin City and still set traps in the Wangyue Tower Hall? In the end, since you have not made up your mind to die, who should I show you this hypocrisy? Zhao Ruqing is ashamed to be with you. Among the five, Lingyi and Jiang Wang were from poor families. Du Yehu's family was not in good or bad condition, while Fang Pengju and Zhao Ruqing were wealthy young masters. The Fang family goes without saying that although the Zhao family only moved to Fenglin City in the past decade, their family background is unfathomable. Xiao Wu, you have always been good friends with Lao San, so it's okay to lean towards him on a daily basis. But am I not your fourth brother? You have no evidence and only rely on inference to say these words that kill the heart. Can you just have peace of mind? Fang Ping felt heartbroken and looked extremely distressed and injured. Pengju, you are still eloquent. Jiang Wang stopped Zhao Ruqing and others, but have you ever thought about why, even if I was seriously injured and escaped before, I didn't secretly contact my elder brother, second brother, and fifth brother, but chose to come to you only today? His eyelids drooped slightly and he said, because I never wanted them to make any choices, I didn't want them to suspect, I didn't want them to be in trouble. The matter between you and me is up to you and me to solve. If I die, then I die. Since I'm still alive, then what should be returned, you have to give it back to me. Fang Peng looked at him coldly and said, do you have any illusions of being persecuted? I don't owe you anything, how can you repay me? Why are you so stubborn? But Jiang Wang no longer had a conversation with him. Instead, he turned around and bowed to the tall statue of the Taoist in the monastery from afar, saying, disciple Jiang Wang, he was killed by the treacherous Fang Pengju and almost died. This hatred cannot be resolved, this hatred cannot be dispelled. Please die with him. There was an uproar on the field. Dao Zheng, fight to the death. It is a crime to kill one's fellow disciples, but if there is a great hatred of life and death and blood feud that cannot be dispelled, the Taoist sect does not shy away from duels. Among the many types of duels, the one witnessed by the Taoist is also the most irreparable. Taoists generally believe that the Taoist deity lies high in the 9 heavens and has insight into the universe. Reciting its name is known. To admire its form is to feel it. Once all vows involve the Dao Zun, they are irreparable. To fight to the death is to never cease. As soon as Jiang Wang finished speaking, a middle-aged Taoist in a black robe appeared in front of the statue of Dao Zun. He has a calm and determined face, with a short beard. There is a small green dragon embroidered on the right chest of the black Taoist robe, which looks incredibly lifelike. This is a Tinglong Dao Pao that can only be worn by third-grade strong individuals. The realm of secular cultivators is roughly divided into 9 levels. Each school or name may have different extraordinary manifestations, but the approximate rank can correspond to the 9th grade system. The 9th to 7th grade is the initial level, the 6th to 4th grade is the intermediate level, and the 3rd to 1st grade is the advanced level. Interestingly, this also corresponds to the official status of various countries. Of course, even a first-class prime minister in a small country like Zhuang may not necessarily have the strength of a first-class prime minister. As soon as the black-robed short-bearded Taoist appeared, all the disciples present bowed and saluted, Dean. There are not many Taoist priests in the entire Fenglin city who can wear Tinglong black robes, including Dong A, the director of Fenglin Taoist Academy. It is said that he once practiced in Xiankun city, the capital of Zhuanghe Kingdom. Due to Fang Zheng's impartial personality, he offended the powerful and was sent to Fenglin city, Qinghe County. Lingyi had a mournful expression on his face, but he remained silent. He was well aware of Jiang Wang's swordsmanship, and it can be said that before officially starting practicing Taoism, no one in the outer courtyard was his opponent, and Fang Pengju was no exception. But since Jiang Wang proposed a duel of Dao Zheng, he expressed that his injustice is unsolvable. At this moment, the dean arrived in person. Fang Pengju had to fight to the death, or he could only wait for Fenglin Taoist Academy to intervene and investigate the assassination of Jiang Wang. However, where can Fang Pengju withstand the investigation of the Taoist Academy? Therefore, in fact, he did not choose. Amidst countless suspicious, mocking, or angry gazes, Fang Peng still couldn't see any panic on his face and said, "Third brother, are you and I really going to draw our swords and face each other?" Jiang Wang said calmly, "It was you, not me, who brought us to our current state. How can you believe me? I have already sacrificed my life for this trust, and now, talking too much is useless. In my impression, Fang Pengju is not a coward who dare not fight." Fang Pengju remained unmoved and said, "Are you so confident that you can kill me?" Jiang Wang looked at him calmly and said, "Why don't you give it a try?" Fang Pengju stared at him for a while, then suddenly laughed and said, "Unfortunately, you can't kill me. Our duel cannot be established. Because just 2 days ago, my Tao pulse was first revealed, and I can be said to be an inner courtyard disciple. We have different levels, how can we duel?" He stood up straight as he spoke, exerting all his strength to stimulate the Tao meridian. Everyone present could sense a surge of momentum rising from his spine, making him energetic. This indicates that he has revealed the Tao meridian, and his physical body can provide feedback to the Tao meridian to give birth to Tao elements, officially possessing extraordinary power. The monastery has already established corresponding regulations for duels, and an important point is that anyone can unconditionally refuse duel invitations between different levels. This is to protect the lower cultivators from being bullied by the higher cultivators. But at this moment, it became a reason for Fang Pengju to avoid the duel. Although he showed his Tao meridian, it was not long before he began practicing Taoism, so his strength did not fundamentally improve, so he still did not have the confidence to engage in battle with Jiang Wang. Jiang Wang fell silent. He silently watched Fang Pengju, his emotions mixed. Then he slowly said, "For this pulse-opening pill, I broke into the West Mountain with a single sword, fought with blood, and only then broke through the thief's nest. In this battle, I suffered 13 injuries and had 2 fatal injuries. In order to achieve the best effect of opening the pulse, I plan to wait for my body to recover to its peak before using this pill. I understand the principle of harboring guilt, so I have never disclosed it to anyone. Everyone thought I would take the pill on the same day, except for you, except for our 5 brothers who were born and died. Because I have nothing to hide from you. Since I was exposed to the world of cultivation at the age of 5, I have been pursuing this pulse-opening pill. I have not been born with external Tao meridians, and to be extraordinary, I can only rely on pills. It is my path of cultivation, my hope, and my only light. You know my family situation, and you know how hard I work. I wake up every day before dawn to practice swordsmanship, and only rest in the middle of the month. I never go to brothels, nor indulge myself in any way. I dare say that there is no external disciple in the entire Fenglin Taoist Academy who works harder than me. I have worked hard for this pulse-opening pill for a full 11 years. Jiang Wang said as he stared at Fang Pengju intently, "With my sweat, my blood, and my tears, is my pulse-opening pill effective?" There was a moment of silence inside the venue. Lingyi's lips tightened, Zhao Ruqing gritted his teeth and remained silent. Even a man like Du Yehu's eyes turned red. Yeah, who doesn't know about Jiang Wang's madness, his fatigue, and his suffering? And Fang Pengju, surprisingly, has such a heart. I don't know what you're talking about. Fang Peng's face flashed with a hint of unease, but he quickly suppressed him. My uncle led a caravan through the Yun Kingdom in the early days, and happened to buy a pulse-opening pill from a financially strapped cultivator. As a result, my Tao meridian was revealed. What does it have to do with you? Don't think that everyone, like you, comes from a low and poor background and does anything to strive for progress. Our Fang family has a wealth, can't we afford a pulse-opening pill? Zhao Ruqing was already extremely resentful, and his words no longer restrained. Yes, the Fang family does indeed have a wealth of wealth. Unfortunately, your parents passed away early, and you are not the only legitimate descendant of the Fong family. The resources allocated to your family are even more limited. Otherwise, why did you not have the Kaimai pill for such a long time, but so coincidentally, after my third brother was attacked? That's really a coincidence. I can only say, it's too coincidental. Fong Ping raised his eyes with a cold light and said, "Don't talk about things without evidence. For the sake of our brother's fight, I won't argue with you. Next time, as a disciple of the inner courtyard, I will let you know what hierarchy means." You. Zhao Rucheng was extremely angry. Zhaoshuyuan.com Du Yehu even gritted his steel teeth. If it weren't for the presence of the dean, he would have wished to punch Fong Pengju's handsome face. Only Jiang Wang appeared calm and said, "Fong Pengju, I told you before. You are too arrogant, too self-righteous, and often ignore the truth because of it. What I have taught you, why can't you teach it? Why don't you think about it? If the Taoist duel cannot be established, then why would Dean Dong appear here?" He took a step forward and also stimulated the Tao Meridian. The earthworm in the spinal dragon began to swim fiercely, and the whole person was sharp and straight like a sword. That's because I have also manifested my Tao Meridian, officially possessing extraordinary possibilities. We are at the same level, and you dare not let the dean investigate. Therefore, the duel is established. While Fong Pengju was shocked and pale, Dean Dong-A had already waved his sleeve. Just at the entrance of the Taoist Academy, under the feet of Jiang Wang Fongpeng and the other disciples, a sapling suddenly broke through the ground and grew wildly in just a few breaths, forming a huge wooden stake that lifted the two and isolated the other disciples from the outer courtyard. The top of the wooden stake seems to have been sharpened by a sharp tool and is generally flat, measured in 10 steps. From a distance, there is a wooden circular platform. Just around the high platform, there are branches swaying. Fong Pengju had no doubt that once he turned around and ran away, these seemingly harmless branches would turn into cannibalistic beasts. And Jiang Wang's hand was already pressed on the hilt, ready to strike. With a casual move, Dong-A twisted a branch and rolled up the sword that Fong Pengju had thrown to the ground before, throwing it onto the high platform. Fong Peng raised his hand and caught it. In front of the statue of Dao Zun, whose face can never be seen clearly, Dong-A, a powerful figure in the 5th rank inner realm, announced in an indifferent voice, "Dao Zheng's death struggle, start." Chapter 5. If you have experienced the one cut I have experienced. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As Dong-A announced the start of the duel, the two long swords on the wooden platform were resounding with each other. Before the duel, Fong Peng made every effort to evade. But once the duel truly begins, he has no hesitation. The sword is extremely stable, precise, and ruthless, with no room for maneuver. He was able to stand out among the external disciples of the entire Fenglin Taoist Academy and win the respect of Jiang Wang and others in the previous period, which is by no means an empty name. But Jiang Wang is faster, more stable, and more decisive than him. Because he had been waiting for 57 days, and during these 57 days and nights, he was constantly imagining this scene. Even if seriously injured, even if the illness is unbearable, even if on the brink of death several times. When facing enemies, he will fight with swords, whether he is injured or killed. But being betrayed by the person you trust the most, the pain and suffering in your heart far outweighs your body. What supported him through that period of time was not only the infinite desire for life, but also the unforgettable hatred. With one sword, it pierced into Fong Peng's sword-lifting posture. As the sword entered, he hit the long sword raised by Peng with his lower abdomen. As blood splattered, Jiang Wang casually swung his sword across and cut open Fong Peng's raised tendons. Two wounds appear almost simultaneously, but one is active and the other is passive, which already determines the outcome. Jiang Wang walked in again, elbowed his body, and suddenly smashed forward. Hard hit Fong Pengju's chest. Fang Pengju had just lost control of his sword in excruciating pain, and the next moment he heard the sound of his own bone fracture clearly ringing out. The whole person was blasted into a shrimp-like shape, collided with the high platform, and then bounced back by those swaying branches, falling onto the high platform. In just one round, Fang Pengju was defeated. How could it be? The gap is so huge. There was an uproar below the high platform. Everything happened too quickly, mixed with Jiang Wang's blood and tears. The opening pulse pill made Fang Peng's Dao pulse appear and his momentum rise high. The sword mixed with Jiang Wang's hatred and pain also caused Fang Peng to fall into the dust. He lost to himself, to fear, Zhao Ruqing said in a deep voice. If it weren't for fear, he wouldn't have chosen to assassinate third brother and use despicable means to seize the Kaimai pill. He knew that he had no way to surpass third brother. Once the gap widened, he would never be able to catch up again. Lingyi couldn't help but sigh and said, when Lao San first came to the Taoist Academy, his strength was still at the bottom, far inferior to Pengju. A few years later, his swordsmanship has been recognized as the top among outsiders, and Pengju has always been proud. Du Yehu angrily said, after all, isn't it because of incompetence and shamelessness? Bang dang. Jiang Wang slowly pulled out the long sword that pierced through his abdomen and threw it aside casually. The long sword with blood clanged to the ground, as helpless and hasty as Fang Pengju spitting out blood. The long sword hung on his side, and Jiang Wang walked slowly forward. Help! Dean, help! I am a child of the Fang family, and the Fang family is one of the 3 major surnames in this city. Fang Peng raised his head in fear and shouted, how could he still have the temperament of a wealthy young master? Dongzhen remained expressionless and said, since it's a fierce battle of Daozheng, it's natural for you to never stop fighting. It's only your opponent who will decide your life or death. Third brother, third brother. Fang Peng raised his hand to support the ground and kept retreating. You spare me, spare me. Spare me once. The Fang family is a century-old family. But there has been no cultivator who has pushed open the gates of heaven and earth in 20 years. Slowly, slowly. How much time do I have to wait? I cannot stop, I carry the earnest hope of my deceased father, I cannot stop. He looked at Jiang Wang with tearful eyes and said, your Kaimai pill, I'll tell you, will you give it to me? Jiang Wang remained silent. My uncle went to Yunhua, but he couldn't buy the Kaimai pill at all. Even if he did, he might not give it to me. The control of Kaimai pill is becoming stricter and only rewards the most promising external disciples. Only you have achieved such merits in the entire Fenglin Taoist Academy. I have no choice, I have no choice. Fang Pengju cried bitterly. Jiang Wang squinted his eyes and said, I actually understand you. I understand your anxiety, unease, and fear. The Fang family is a big family that has given you a superior environment, but competition is also fierce. I knew early on that human desires are infinite. I also know how much you yearn to prove yourself and fight for glory for your father who passed away young. You have said it all, and I remember it all. You are eager to achieve something, and you are obsessed, but I can actually understand. In the sudden flash of hope that flashed through Fang Peng's eyes, he replied, but understanding does not mean forgiveness. After saying these words, Jiang Wang just walked up to Fang Pengju. The long sword drew a clear arc in the air, penetrating his chest with precision without any hesitation. Why repay kindness with virtue? So, I once died, and you need to use your life to repay it. Jiang Wang said slowly. Fang Peng held the sword with his intact left hand and allowed the blade to cut open his palm, allowing the sword to remain inside his body and allowing death to be delayed a little. He struggled and made a hoarse sound. After taking your pill, I can't sleep every night. I regret it. I'm sorry. But you're safe, aren't you? We're brothers. Why? Why can't you forgive me? Once. Many people under the high platform have complex emotions and cannot bear to look or listen anymore. But Jiang Wang just looked at him calmly. Do you know the feeling of being betrayed? Do you know the pain and anger that burns through my heart? You make my trust seem foolish, you make my experience like a joke. You make my pain meaningless. Memory is like flowing water, but without warmth, it is difficult to stir up waves. Have you had the experience of lying on a pile of straw, searching for a book garden www.zhaoshuyuan.com, feeling weak and powerless, only able to wait for death to come? I seem to see two shadows swaying in front of me, I know its black and white impermanence. I seem to hear their breathing, slow, slow, ringing in my ears. I once swore to defeat fate. But I know I'm about to die, but I have nothing to do. If you have experienced what I have experienced, you understand that some pain cannot be compensated. I have already died once. If I forgive you, I have no right to face myself. Jiang Wang said that and slowly and resolutely drew his long sword. The high platform slowly descended, the branches contracted, and in the end, the entire dual field extended by the Taoist technique transformed into a small sapling and penetrated underground. And Fang Pengjiu lay quietly on the ground, his right hand hanging down, and his left hand still holding in front of him, as if firmly grasping the long sword that took away his life. His eyes were wide open, tinged with pain, unwillingness, and various emotions. But he is already dead. Lingyi let out a light sigh and walked forward, taking off his coat and covering Fang Peng's face. Du Yehu opened his mouth, seeming to want to curse something, but finally couldn't speak. The person has already died. Zhao Ruqing remained motionless and silent. Jiang Wang stood quietly in place, his eyes not looking at anyone in the field, but at the endless and distant sky. As if gazing at oneself in another time and space. Rest in peace, he said in his heart. My mind is empty and bright. The earthworm in the spine suddenly became agile, leaping up from the coccyx and smoothly swam through a journey, spitting out a round, full, and beautiful Tao element. Jiang Wang suddenly remembered a sentence in his heart. All things in the world are cultivated, and a well-rounded mind is the source of food. Chapter 6. Trust is not wrong. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Fenglin City is located in Qinghai County and ranks last among the 13 cities in terms of scale, only before Maocheng. The abbot of such a city usually matches a mid-level 6th grade Taoist. Dong A, with a 5th grade cultivation, was stationed at Fenglin Taoist Academy, but there were also rumors that he had offended people in the village. But for the disciples of Fenglin Taoist Academy, this is undoubtedly a good thing. So, apart from Fang Dicai's testimony, before this duel, Fang Pengjiu personally arranged an attack with the intention of killing you and taking the pill. Can't you provide conclusive evidence that can be made public? Dong A, dressed in a black Taoist robe, sat upright in the quiet room Putuan. There is a portrait hanging on the wall behind him, depicting a Taoist dressed in a noble purple Taoist robe. The brushstrokes are delicate, and the image is lifelike. However, the Taoist's face is like hidden clouds and mist, which cannot be seen clearly. Jiang Wang bowed his head and stood respectfully in front of the dean. Upon hearing the question, he spoke in a calm tone as much as possible, I know it's him, that's enough. As for the hard evidence, he will naturally give it to everyone before his death. And he did not disappoint me. Dong A knew that he was referring to the pulse-opening pill that Fang Pengjiu had taken. Is it too urgent and reckless? It was supposed to be Su Su's plan, listing evidence for the decision of the Taoist court. However, 2 days later was the time for the selection of students in the inner court. Since Fang Pengjiu had already revealed his Tao lineage, he could definitely become a disciple of the dean. Time was tight, so he could only take risks. Jiang Wang dared to kill the disciples of the outer court, but dared not kill the disciples of the dean. The outer gate is just a preparation, the inner courtyard disciples are the true disciples of the Taoist school. When speaking, Jiang Wang always lowered his head, showing the humility and duty that a disciple should have. But what flashed through my mind at this moment was the sound of the sword whistling from the west, which was truly beyond observation. The man named Li Yi was as powerful as the arrogant leaders Wu Guangliye with just one sword. Where does it need to go through countless twists and turns? Compared to the battle that occurred outside of Huan Zhenguan, how weak he was. How weak his proud swordsmanship is. Where does one have time to grind and struggle with Fang Pengju in order to find a perfect way? Furthermore, if it weren't for today's single sword direct entry, bold initiation of the Daojing duel, and other forms of confrontation, he wouldn't have had the advantage of Fang Pengju, who was backed by the Fonglin Fang family. If Fang Pengju's Kaimai pill comes from you, then where does your Kaimai pill come from? Here we go. Jiang Wang felt a slight tightness in his heart, but there was no trace of it on his face. The battle that occurred outside the Huanzhen temple, even if no one dared to approach due to the power of the strong parties, would inevitably trigger investigations afterwards. Moreover, Gong Yanbai and other people were stationed within the territory of Zhuang State, and it was impossible not to communicate with the strong members of Zhuang State in advance. No matter how small the country is, it still has the dignity of a country. As the strongest on the surface of the entire Fonglin city, Dongzhen couldn't have been unaware of that battle. Fortunately, Jiang Wang had no secrets in the whole matter, and in this world with extraordinary power, the traces he left behind could not be concealed. At present, he tried his best to describe everything he heard from the most objective perspective without any subjective attitude. Including his physical condition, his decision-making thoughts, and how he managed to extract the Kaimai pill from the blurred flesh and blood, including ultimately burying those corpses. I only skipped the matter of the virtual key. During the narration, Dongzhen remained silent except for the fleeting anger in his eyes that was about to erupt. Jiang Wang certainly knows where this anger comes from. The outskirts of Fonglin City are truly breathtaking. This is the territory of Zhuang Kingdom. And the powerful cultivators from Qin and Chu fought fiercely here without any hesitation. No one dared to interfere in this battle, even in Fonglin City and Qinghe County. For cultivators in Zhuang country, this is a great shame in itself. The reason why Dongzhen suppressed this anger was simply because he didn't want to expose the fact that Zhuang Guo was weak and avoid affecting his disciples' confidence in cultivation. He should be a good dean. Jiang Wang silently observed in his heart the mid-level powerhouse who had been leading his path of cultivation for a long time. He had never had such an opportunity before today. While observing and summarizing, I recounted my experience of having already prepared a draft. Your Kaimai pill has a clear origin. I have reviewed your previous mission resumes when you were outside, and you have both discretion and determination, which can be considered rare. Dongzhen gave Jiang Wang a faint glance before saying, in the future, you can call yourself a disciple in front of me. Jiang Wang's heart suddenly relaxed, knowing that this level had passed. And he has received recognition from the Dean of Fonglin Taoist Academy and was directly elected to the inner court. He crossed his thumbs, with his left hand on the outside and his right hand on the inside. He clenched his fist and raised it to his chest with negative yin and yang, nodded slightly, and saluted, "Thank you, Master." Confucianism emphasizes the personal guidance of the ruler of heaven and earth, while for Taoism, the teacher comes before the ruler's personal guidance, because the teacher is the one who explains the great way. For all the disciples in the inner courtyard of Fonglin Taoist Academy, Dongzhen is their mentor. Dongzhen closed his eyes slightly and said no more, "Go ahead." Coming out of the dean's meditation room, he walked side by side with Lingyi and Zhao Rucheng who had been guarding outside. The three of them didn't speak for a moment, and the atmosphere was low. Jiang Wang returned, but Fang Pengju died. The so-called 5 heroes of the Maple Forest are still in name only. Since Du Yehu did not appear here, he must have been hiding at some corner to drink. Among these people, he appears the most carefree, but when faced with such situations, he is probably the least able to face them. No matter how harshly he curses, how much he hates in his heart, he cannot erase the fact that he once regarded Fang Pengju as his own brother. As the eldest brother, Lingyi was the first to break his silence. You go back to the cottage first, and I have to send Pengju's body back to the Fang mansion. The disciples of the outer gate of Fenglin Taoist Academy are 6 people living in the same house. The 5 heroes of Fenglin moved to the same house because they share the same spirit. Others cannot enter this circle, so they have always lived in a dormitory with 5 people. Jiang Wang didn't speak. Lingyi has such a personality. No matter how many faults Fang Pengju has, he cannot ignore his body. Are you still hating Lao Si? Ling he asked. Don't shout like the fourth anymore. Zhao Ruqing's handsome face showed a hint of disgust. I'm ashamed to talk about people who murder brothers and are despicable and vicious. Go to Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Compared to his age, Lingyi's face has become too mature, which is probably why he is more likely to gain trust. Among the 5, he has always played the role of the big brother, taking care of several younger brothers. Due to his steady and mature side, it is often overlooked that he is only 19 years old, only 2 years older than Jiang Wang and 3 years older than Zhao Ruqing. It's just that the children of the poor are already in charge. Looking at Lingyi, Jiang Wang shook his head and said in a loud voice, I hate him for not being able to do it. I only hate myself for being foolish and for believing me wrong. Despite his calm demeanor, Lingyi still heard a hint of unforgettable resentment. He can fully understand. Trust is one of the brightest things in the world. Trust is not wrong, Jiang Wang. Ling he said, what's wrong is the person who betrayed your trust. He didn't say any more, but his earnest gaze told Jiang Wang. Our brotherly relationship is not wrong, let alone adulterate. Wrong or fake, it's just the person who abandons all of this. Just Fang Pengju. That's why he had to send Fang Pengju's body back, so that he wouldn't have nowhere to be found after death. This is not out of recognition or sympathy from the other party Pengju, but simply a respect and maintenance of the brotherly relationship that was once held and should not be changed between a few people in the future. This is Lingyi. Whether irritable like Du Yehu or arrogant like Fang Pengju, they are willing to call him big brother, not just because of age. You go. Death is like a lamp extinguished, and all enmities and grievances disappear. Jiang Wang stopped and said, but I can't go with you. I can't do it, Zhao Ruqing said coldly. Ling he patted Zhao Ruqing's shoulder and gave Jiang Wang a deep glance before turning around and leaving. Chapter 7. Memories of Old Things. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhao Ruqing comes from a privileged family and bought a house near the Taoist temple to live in. He has about 10 servants to serve him and doesn't often stay in the dormitory. Du Yehu, on the other hand, once he gets drunk, it won't take him a moment to pass it off. Therefore, when Jiang Wang returned to the dormitory, he suddenly realized that in the usually noisy dormitory, only he was left. After closing the door, he instinctively glanced at the innermost bed on the left side of the dormitory. On the bed is a neatly stacked clean bedding, with no difference in material compared to the bedding of other people in the dormitory. At this moment, there is no one on the bed, and they will never appear again in the future. This is Fang Pengju's bed. He comes from a wealthy family, but he never pinches trivial matters, drinks and eats with others, and is never picky. The bed opposite Fang Pengju is empty, with a lot of luggage piled up on it. The beds on both sides are arranged as a final line, with 3 beds on one side. The second bed next to Fang Pengju's bed on the left is the most messy one in the dormitory. The bedding is randomly piled up in a ball, and the scattered clothes are just decorations. If you smell it carefully, you can still smell the aroma of wine. If you look down at the bottom of the bed, you can see a neatly arranged and densely packed wine jar. Compared to the environment where the bed owner resides, these wine jars are clearly taken care of very well. The first bed on the left is by the door, so this is Lingyi's bed. He is always responsible for opening and closing doors for everyone. There are a few inconspicuous patches on the bedding, but they are washed very clean. The first bed on the right side is Jiang Wang's, and his bedding is between Buzhong and Lingyi. Although I haven't been back for a long time, the bed is still very tidy, obviously cleaned frequently. Maybe it's Lingyi, maybe it's Zhao Rucheng. Or maybe it's Fang Pengju. The second bed on the right side next to Jiang Wang belongs to Zhao Rucheng. His bed is unique in the entire dormitory, and the bedding and sheets are all of Xianxia's high-end goods. On the small dormitory bed, there are also curtains embroidered with gold thread. It's a world of difference from Du Yehu on the other side. People who are not familiar with Zhao Rucheng may find it difficult to get along with him, but in fact, it's just that his standard of living is too high. Even if you only come to the dormitory occasionally, try to be as luxurious and comfortable as possible. He even invested a lot of money to transform the entire dormitory into a top-notch guest room. If it weren't for Jiang Wang beating him up. Jiang Wang has been living in this dormitory for 3 years since he was admitted to the outer gate of the monastery at the age of 14. Every detail in the room made him exceptionally familiar. Things are different, people are different. Jiang Wang remained silent for a while, then took off his shoes and socks, took off his outer shirt, and lay down on his own bed. He was very tired, but it was only at this moment that he was finally able to sleep peacefully. Awakening and floating in the sky, dreaming and waiting for the sky to rise. The entire Fenglin city is well planned in all 4 directions. The Lord's mansion is located in the center, radiating from all directions. The eastern city is the territory of the Taoist Academy, while the wealthy and noble families are located in the west of the city. Most of the residents in the southern city are civilians, while the wealthy merchants mostly gather in the northern part of the city. Upon seeing Jiang Wang walk out of the dean's quiet room, Lingyi left the monastery alone holding Fang Pengju's body. When Fang Pengju was alive, he was in full response, had many friends, and when he died, everyone despised him. He behaves despicably and maliciously, and deserves to be despised by others. Lingyi didn't feel wrong for him, but he still felt some heartache. He wrapped Fang Pengju's body in his coat, which was old but washed very clean. For him, walking from the east to the west of the city is not far, and the road to the Fang family mansion is also very familiar. But Lingyi walked slowly and with heavy footsteps. He couldn't bear to part with it. He is the oldest and should take care of his 4 younger brothers, but he did not do so. He still remembers the scene when the 5 of them formed a friendship by the Green Willow River, and remembers the brilliant smiles of each of the 5 brothers. The Green Willow River is a tributary of the Qinghe River, passing around Nyoto Mountain, and the water in the river is very clear. It can reflect young faces and young hearts. That year they wielded swords and walked horses, raised their glasses and chatted together, practiced martial arts countless times, and talked by candlelight countless nights. They agreed to ascend to the inner courtyard together, wield their swords together in the underworld, and attain extraordinary enlightenment together. Those memories, those agreements. Lingyi never imagined that such a like-minded and deeply loyal 5 people would have a day when brothers would turn against each other and face life and death. How could this be possible? He thought. He couldn't figure it out, but he held on to Fang Peng's cold body and finally walked to the door of Fang's mansion. "What are you doing?" the gatekeeper stopped him and asked. The mansion of Fangzhai is very tall, towering above all else. Oh. Lingyi held Fang Pengju's body and lowered his head slightly to say hello. Fang Pengju passed away. I will bring his body back and bury it in your mansion. If there is no one to collect the body, it will be taken by the government to the mass grave for unified processing. That is the place that the left-wing demon likes to visit the most, and it is also difficult to be peaceful after death. But Lingyi thought it was unnecessary to say this. He is not someone who likes to show credit, nor does he think it is any credit. The gatekeeper's face changed and the door slammed shut. The voice came from behind the door. You take it away. The master said he's not allowed to enter. Little brother, Lingyi said sincerely, please inform your master again. No matter what Ping Ju says, he is also a member of the Fong family's bloodline. It may just be a momentary anger to contact the Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com or they will not ignore it. The gatekeeper seemed to hesitate for a moment. I'll go ask again. Don't take the opportunity to break in. Please rest assured, young man. Lingyi held on to Fong Pingju's body and stood firmly in front of the Fong mansion, listening as the footsteps hurried away. He lowered his head and said to Fong Pingju's already cold face, Pingju, what kind of scumbag are you doing? No one will remember you even after you die. God hates ghosts. After a long time, the sound of the gatekeeper rang out again behind the door. The master said, he pondered for a moment and repeated the words of the owner of the house, I'm dead. What are you doing to bring me back? Lingyi was stunned for a moment before stumbling and saying, the Fong family is a respectable family, and they should give Peng a decent reputation. The master has said that the cause of Fong Pingju's death is already clear to the elderly. Such an unjust person is not a descendant of the Fong family. But he is the seed of the Fong family, said Lingyi. You go. The gatekeeper threw a knife coin through the crack in the door. If you keep bothering us, we'll report to the authorities. Those knife coins jingled and fell to the ground, which was very eye-catching. If used for simple burial of a corpse, it would be more than enough. More money is like tipping. This is the attitude of the Fong family. Lingyi fell silent. He no longer tries to say anything. He is very poor, he has been poor since childhood. He is very short of money, his only intact outer garment is wrapped around Fong Pingju's body, and his middle garment has been patched many times. He stood in front of the magnificent Fong mansion, like a poor relative who had been shut down. He held on to Fong Pingju's body and turned around to leave. From beginning to end, I didn't take a glance at those knife coins. This is Lingyi's attitude. Chapter 8. Shaking the Head. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Since escaping from the Moon Tower after bathing in blood, Jiang Wang has not slept fully, so he slept exceptionally long during this sleep. He had many dreams. He dreamed that he was killing all directions on the debating platform. He dreamed that he practiced for thousands of miles in a day, riding the wind to break through the clouds. He dreamed that the sky was vast, and the 5 streams of light were incredibly fast and unparalleled. He woke up. He sat up in silence, leaning against the bedside, unable to distinguish whether the sudden palpitations or sadness came. He shook his head and restrained his mind. At this moment it was already dark outside the window, and there was still only him in the dormitory. Jiang Wang frowned. It's normal for Du Yehu to drink for a few days and nights, but Lingyi always follows the rules and cannot stay up at night. The dormitory outside Fenglin Taoist Academy consists of several rows of connected bungalows. He goes out in his cloak, while the door to the opposite dormitory is tightly closed. The neighboring dormitory is quiet on both sides, and the hallway is inexplicably cold. Jiang Wang casually stopped a passing figure and said, "Junior brother, have you seen senior brother Lingyi?" Lingyi. I haven't seen it before, the person replied in an extremely stiff voice. As he spoke, he shook his head. Bang! His head unexpectedly broke off like this, falling to the ground and rolling a few times. He shook his head. Looking at the headless body that had just been talking, Jiang Wang only felt a cool breath rising from the coccyx and rushing straight towards the heavenly spirit. But after all, he had been in battle for a long time, so he instinctively took a step back and prepared to withdraw to his dormitory first, at least taking out his weapons. But the dormitory door suddenly closed tightly and couldn't be pushed open. It seems like there is someone in the room pressing against the door, preventing him from entering. And at this moment, the headless body turned around, opened its hands and took big strides, running towards him. The head that fell to the ground suddenly bounced up after rolling a few rolls, and then collided with Jiang Wang's body step by step. Its long hair is loose, its face is twisted and ferocious, its nose is sunken, and its two eyeballs are high and bulging. The evil ghost of midnight, the deadly soul. Pretend to be a god and play tricks. Jiang Wang let out a loud shout, hoping to startle other disciples inside and outside the dormitory, and at the same time, he threw himself into retreat. This is Fenglin Taoist Academy, where Dong a 5th grade cultivator, sits. If you detect any changes, you will definitely be killed. No matter what strange and evil thing, they will never dare to make too much noise. If we can escape directly, it is naturally the best strategy. But the ejection speed of that head was too fast for Jiang Wangzhen to escape. So he took a few steps back and suddenly rose into the air, pouring one of the only two Dao elements in his Dao meridian into his right leg, then twisted his body and kicked, thrusting back in the air. Under the urging of Dao Yuan, his leg possessed tremendous strength far superior to the past. The image of gods, ghosts, and demons has never been just a legend. Although Jiang Wang was not completely extraordinary, he had already witnessed the extraordinary world. He has killed people, seen blood, and has already sharpened his courage. He told himself in his heart, that's a ball, that's not a head, that's just a ball. Bang! The face of the boot collided with the head, and the head shot back at a faster speed than before, hitting the headless body that was running forward and causing it to stumble. Kuju shooting. At the same time, Jiang Wang also felt a sharp pain in the back of his foot. It turned out that while being struck, he was bitten open by the head with blood, tearing off a piece of flesh from his shoe upper. The wound is faintly turning green. Jiang Wang knew something was amiss in his heart, probably due to the effects of corpse poison or something like that. But his goal of attacking and blocking the enemy has been achieved, and he doesn't hesitate to turn around and run. A few steps ran to the end of the aisle, but was blocked by a transparent membrane of vitality. That force is not strong, but very resilient, firmly blocking the way forward. This is a siege game. Jiang Wang's mind suddenly turned, and the last Dao element in his Dao pulse burst open, condensing on his right shoulder. He exerted his strength crazily, slamming his shoulders together. Open it for me. Jiang Wang felt his body light and had already stepped out of the aisle between these two rows of dormitories. Then he heard the sound of the wind, the chirping of insects, the voices of the disciples returning from the outer gate. The sound of the night. That quiet environment has been disrupted. Senior brother Jiang Wang, what are you doing? Senior brother, why are you injured? I saw Jiang Wang's outer disciple coming to greet me. Jiang Wang heard greetings from his familiar classmates and understood that he had escaped danger. He turned around and rushed back to the aisle, which was indeed empty. The headless body and head have also disappeared. And someone in both dormitories pushed open the door and said, "What's going on? Why didn't the door open just now?" A frightened voice shouted, "Dead! Dead!" Jiang Wang rushed into the dormitory where the shouting came first, and only then did he discover the missing severed body. He and his head are now lying quietly on the ground, their faces still grim. The one trembling in the corner should be his panicked roommate. The means exhibited by the opponent include at least left-wing corpse control techniques and orthodox water-walking techniques. Or rather, there is more than one opponent. Jiang Wang's mind suddenly turned and he spoke out decisively, "A demon has broken into the outer door at night and practiced Taoism, which is extraordinary. His strength should be within the 9th grade range. All junior brothers must take good care of themselves and act in groups of 5, echoing each other. From now on, block the dormitory area and no one is allowed to enter. I will immediately go and consult with senior brothers in the inner courtyard." The anxious disciples of the outer sect suddenly had a backbone and acted accordingly. Jiang Wang immediately turned around and ran straight towards the inner courtyard. The entire eastern part of the city is surrounded by Fenglin Taoist Academy and its affiliated industries, but in reality, only the courtyard surrounded by high walls in the center of the Dongzhen district is considered the true Fenglin Taoist Academy. External disciples like Jiang Wang are scattered around the monastery. Compared to the tall archway in front of the outer courtyard, the door of the inner courtyard is much smaller and can only accommodate 4 people in parallel. Just from the plaque that glows faintly in the night, carving dragons and phoenixes, one can glimpse exquisite thoughts. There is a small pavilion in front of the inner courtyard, with only 2 flowing clouds and lanterns hanging in front of the pavilion, and only 1 ice grass and cattail ball in the pavilion. A handsome Taoist dressed in hemp sat cross-legged on a cushion, closing his eyes and practicing. This is Li Jianxiu, the inner courtyard disciple on duty today. Jiang Wang rushed to this point and quickly bowed. Senior brotherly, there is a left-wing demon who is committing crimes in the outer courtyard. 1 junior brother has already been killed. Please take charge of the overall situation. For external disciples, every inner courtyard disciple who embarks on the path of cultivation is a celebrity-like figure. Having been in the monastery for so long, Jiang Wang is naturally familiar with them all. For Li Jianxiu, he was not an unknown person, and as a duty officer, he had no shirking his duty to initiate a duel of Daozheng, which led to Jiang Wang being personally notarized by the dean. So he only heard 1 sentence and then pressed his sword and stood up. No need, a majestic voice sounded, calling on Li Jianxiu to immediately bow down with his sword. Dean Dong-A appeared at the entrance of the inner courtyard, with a cold expression that could even be described as ugly. I will personally handle this matter. Corpse aura. He looked at the wound torn by the flying head on the back of Jiang Wang's foot, extended his index finger, and without any other movement, a blue spike had already solidified. At this moment, Jiang Wang noticed that the wound on his foot had already suppurated and began to bleed black, which made him feel uneasy. Grade C intermediate level Taoist technique, swallowing poison sting. This Taoist technique is very practical and can be used in intermediate levels. Dong-A casually explained while slightly nodding his index finger. Zhaozhuiyuan.com. In addition to advanced Taoist techniques, general Taoist techniques are divided into 4 grades and 12 grades. The vast and boundless ocean of Taoism cannot be fully explored even after exhausting one's life. Every Taoist practitioner who embarks on a path of transcendence must have a clear understanding of what kind of Taoism is most suitable for them, and through continuous combat exploration, form their own combat system. The sharp thorn plunged into the wound on Jiang Wang's foot, turning black at a visible speed to the naked eye. In just a few seconds, the blue thorn had already become pitch black all over, and the wound no longer had a green and black color, but was emitting bright red blood. Jiang Wang quickly pulled off the hem of his clothes and bandaged the wound. Li Jianxiu watched this scene silently, feeling lost in thought. At this moment, Dong-A asked, "What happened?" Jiang Wang recounted the matter in the shortest possible language and no longer expressed his opinion. He believed, and could only believe, that the dean of Fenglin City Taoist Academy would give him justice regarding his assassination in the academy. Dong-A's lips slightly curled up, as his serious expression made his smile particularly chilly. By the side, dare to come to Fenglin City Taoist Academy as a demon. This is not taking the academy seriously, not taking Dong-A seriously. He spread his robe, spread his fingers open, and bent down to press against the earth. Jade cage. Centered around his 5 fingers, the intangible power belonging to the wooden path extends in all directions. All the gates of the entire monastery closed with a loud bang. And sprouting branches, wildly surging. The ivy on the courtyard wall bounced up like a long snake, interweaving with each other in mid-air. All the wooden products in the entire monastery have undergone a transformation. Wooden chairs sprout branches, wooden windows open their claws, giant trees break through the ground, thorns dance wildly. In an instant, the entire Fenglin Taoist Academy turned into a blue prison under the night sky. Chapter 9. Attitude. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. All of this may sound slow, but from Jiang Wang heading straight to the inner courtyard to Dong A's bold move, everything just happened in a very short time. Just before the Ting snake completely surrounded in mid-air, a pale figure peeked through the gap and rose into the air at an extremely fast speed, ready to escape from the living sky. Shoo! 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 Countless wooden spikes shot out, piercing him in an instant. His body was pounding in the air until the violent wooden spikes stopped before falling from the air. From the head to the calves, there are densely packed blood holes, so dead that one cannot die again. The entire monastery remained silent, and both the outer disciples and the inner disciples were deeply shocked by this scene. Jiang Wang's eyelids twitched as he looked. That strange leftist demon died like this. Dong didn't even glance at it and said calmly, "The remaining one, are you still hiding?" Funny. He strolled leisurely into the air, step by step. "Everything in the jade cage is under my control, everything is full of vitality, only your scent is nauseating." He extended his right hand and gently grasped it. A big hand grew out of a room door and grabbed a person dressed up as a nearby disciple. The wooden hand pulled its 5 fingers apart, instantly swimming all over its body, locking it tightly. At the same time, the wooden arm quickly extended and held the person in front of Dong A in the air. "Tell me, who sent you here? How dare you commit violence in the monastery?" Dong A turned his back to the starry sky and looked down at this bold and reckless assassin. The wind seemed to have calmed down, quietly waiting for this person's answer. The assassin with an ordinary face suddenly grinned and his entire head burst open. Dong A clenched his fist, and a layer of water film instantly wrapped the red and white objects, forming a swollen water ball. He glanced at the previous corpse again, and a seed burst out of the ground, growing rapidly. The flower bud opened up and turned into a big mouth, wrapping the corpse in one bite. Dong A casually threw the water ball into it. The big mouth of the flower closed and contracted back into the soil. The 2 corpses were cleaned up like this, but Dong A's anger on his face became increasingly apparent. The cultivation seed of our village country was actually killed in the monastery. The left-wing demon dared to do so. This matter must be thoroughly investigated. The Lord's mansion must give this courtyard an explanation, and whoever the main envoy behind them is, they will be executed. A 5th-grade strong person's cultivation is fully displayed, with a sound like rolling thunder, shaking the entire city. Many people in Fenglin City turned pale upon hearing of it. Then a loud voice spread throughout the city, and it was Wei Qiji, the lord of Fenglin City, who said, "Don't worry, Dong Yuan. This matter must be explained by our mansion. No matter who or what is involved, once it is discovered, we will definitely kill and not spare." Jiang Wang watched this scene happen and vaguely felt like he had touched a fierce vortex beneath the sea surface. Daoyuan is a place for the country to cultivate talents and is where the national movement takes place. Murdering in the monastery has already violated Dong A's bottom line. Chang Qin took advantage of the territory to subdue the enemy, and had already torn off the face of Zhuang state. Nowadays, the left way is committing crimes in the Taoist academy. Although the purpose is unknown, it is difficult to say that there is no intention of testing the official response. Before today, it was well known that Dong A and Wei Qiji were not compatible. The former belongs to the faction of the Prime Minister Du Ruhui, while the latter is the former branch of General Huangfu Duanming. With Dong A's strength, it was not necessary to make such a big fuss to uncover the demon. He used Taoist techniques to cover the entire courtyard and later had a conversation with Wei Qujiyao, appearing more like a way to demonstrate his strength, clarify his attitude, and intimidate those who were restless in the shadows. Zhuang Kingdom is not peaceful. Let's all scatter. Dong A remained expressionless as he turned around and walked down into the sky. The door panel jumped back to its original position, and the vine snake swam back to the wall. The entire monastery instantly returned to its original state. The night seems always so quiet. Everything seems like a dream. But the wound that has not yet healed told Jiang Wang that it is true. This is the strength of a 5th grade powerhouse. It's also the scenery he's going to climb. When Zhao Ruqing heard the news and rushed to the Daoist Academy, everything had already calmed down, except for the disciples from the outer academy who still gathered in groups of 3 and 2, excited by the prestige of the dean. He saw Jiang Wang in the dormitory, who was carefully wiping his sword with a handkerchief with golden lines. The handkerchief is naturally Zhao Ruqing's, and there won't be a second person using it in the entire dormitory. Zhao Ruqing first noticed the soles of his feet that had been carefully bandaged again and sneered, "Oh, why did you get injured again? You are the top swordsman in this field, do you have any moisture?" "It's okay," Jiang Wang wiped his sword blade on his own. "Squeeze out all the water, and you'll still be able to teach you a lesson." At this point, he looked up at Zhao Ruqing with a smile and said, "Brother. Isn't it just 1 year older than me, practicing swordsmanship for an extra year?" Zhao Ruqing pursed his lips. "That's also big on the first day. Brother." Zhao Ruqing pinched his teeth and said angrily, "Don't wipe it, okay? Do you know how many broken swords in your hand can I buy with this handkerchief?" Jiang Wang laughed arrogantly and said, "Do you know how many of your handkerchiefs will be worth from the sword Jiang Wang used in the future?" But when this sentence was spoken, he and Zhao Ruqing both fell silent. Because of this, Zhaoshuyuan.com has always been Fang Pengju's style. Using Zhao Ruqing's embroidered gold handkerchief to wipe the sword is also a bad trend he has brought along. In his words, our brothers' swords will be passed down for eternity in the future. How can we not take good care of them? Such a good handkerchief, how wasteful it is to wipe your face. Although Ru Cheng is good-looking, can his face be passed down for eternity? Some people have already disappeared, but the traces left by them will still exist for a long time. Zhao Ruqing spoke up first and changed the topic, saying, "Third brother. What did you say about the demon attacking the monastery this time? Will it affect you? Isn't it an accident?" "The Fang family probably doesn't have the courage," Jiang Wang shook his head, "but it's also hard to say. By the way, have you seen the boss? Lingyi went to the Fang family at noon to return the body, but has not returned yet, which makes him worried." Zhao Ruqing raised his sword eyebrows slightly and said, "I heard he was kicked out of the Fang mansion. I'm not sure where he will go next." Jiang Wang fell silent for a moment and said, "Let's go find it." "If I want to find you, I won't accompany bad people to do bad deeds." Zhao Ruqing pursed his lips. "Hey, it's not that I invited him to be turned off. What are you doing watching me like this?" Jiang Wang just stared at him without speaking. He had to surrender and said, "Okay, okay. But it's so late, where are we going to find it?" Firstly, Jiang Wang analyzed, he definitely won't throw him at the mass grave. But he doesn't have money, Zhao Ruqing continued. And then, he's a person who values emotions. Jiang Wang stood up and walked out. "I know where he went. I also know what he's doing." Zhao Ruqing followed behind, wrinkling his handsome nose. "He must be crying.